Justin Swartz. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you for sure. It's been too long.
It has been a long time.
Long time.
Yeah, you've had quite the journey since the last time we've seen each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you moved up to Ventura, went through all of that, and then moved out of Ventura, all of that. Now moving out of the country and going through all of that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So give us a brief background. First of all, where you come from, what you do, and then we'll talk about your practice.
Well, I was born in my house in Venice Boulevard.
Yes, of course you
are.
A
couple hippies. No, very loving parents. And they grew me up as just that little beach rat. It was cool. Venice was a much different place then. You know, it was kind of where you could afford to live, but still be close enough to the city. My dad was playing music then, wanting to do the musician thing. And you could work at restaurants, make enough money to buy a home in that town, and still go surf every day and kind of live life, grow family. It's a lot harder to do that these days with the prices and everything. But I just kind of grew up as kind of that beach kid, and you know, what every kid, riding my bike to the beach and surfing, and I really fell in love with surfing and wanting to be a professional from a very young age.
Was your dad a surfer?
Yeah, my dad was a surfer.
Oh,
That's
okay,
why.
nice.
So they were in like Burbank where they met, and high school sweethearts. And as soon as they were 18, they moved out to Venice, or they started getting closer and closer. And then, excuse me, they had my sister first, who's 6 years older, who you actually know.
Yeah.
And yeah, you used to work with them. That's funny. It's so random.
And there's some water if you want some.
All that comes around. Yeah. And so they had her, and then they had me. I'm 5 years younger, 5.5 years. And by time I was 10, I just knew I wanted to be a pro surfer. I had them sign me up for a surf contest. I made the final, and from there on it was like begging to be in homeschool, because I used to fight a lot of missing fingers on one hand, which is also the logo on my surfboards.
Yeah.
And so I used to fight a lot because of my hand, you know, insecurities and that it brings, and the hard that kids can be to kids, you know. So
the schools in Venice they're not the easiest schools to go to.
Definitely. And when I was growing up, I remember I went to like 3 different sixth grades. I went in one semester. Like I went from John Adams to then Mark Twain to then over here in Marina. And it was constantly fighting with either the black kids or the Mexican kids. And I used to play football and all the sports, but I was still the white kid, and I was missing fingers, and I was small. So it was very like easy to be picked on, but I was I had big cousins who fought me all the time. So I was like, you guys can't do nothing. And I was get pretty angry. But it was definitely a interesting upbringing being that way, because it was like not now where you see how Venice is with, you know, all the influencers, and it's very much more like there was a community then though. So like being friends, I would be friends with all the, you know, different races, and that we'd hang out like at the beach. When I was surfing breakwater, it was like you had like gangsters and skateboarders and artists and rapper kids and the little gutter punks who lived in the graffiti pit at that time. It was like definitely a different time then. The pavilion was there. So you really had like, it was a lot of the kids were more of a getaway from whatever was going on at home, because it was a very, you know, run down town with gangs and stuff like that then. So it was either kids getting away from what was at home, or just, you know, who loved the beach and the struggles, and you kind of were just, you were beach rats, you know. So once I found surfing, I really kind of tried to escape from falling into the trap of a lot of my friends with just hanging around and getting high at the beach and stealing and going that route. And I started doing contests after my first one. Like I started doing a series, and then I started doing all the NSSAs, USSFs, like where every weekend I had a contest. And eventually my parents put me in homeschool, partially because I'd constantly having conflicts with kids. And then I started getting some sponsors. I was like 10, 12, 11.
Wow.
I started having companies that would sponsor, or either shops or little clothing companies that would sponsor me and pay for like the series or contest. So I just kept pushing that. And throughout that, I was very in tune with my surfing. I didn't, really party or anything. I was constantly very focused on wanting to just like be the best I could. And I would just surf all day and train. I tried to eat well. And around like 17, 18, I started even doing some yoga and finding, but I thought it was much more of just like for my body, just to make it more in tune. And then at 18, I decided I had won a lot of amateur titles, and I was ready to think I could go for the world. Yeah. And that's a real reality check when you might be the best in your town or state or city and amongst the top, 5 or whatever I was rated in with the nationals and those, and then you're against the world, or you really see like a big difference. You go to Australia and you surf a contest and there's 100 people who are like way better.
Yeah, they're good surfers
and
in
they've
Australia.
been going for, you're now in, it's not age brackets, it's everyone.
Yeah.
So it's a reality check, and there's always favorites and things like that. But if you put that in your head, you fall victim to that. You don't allow your level to get higher. And, I did that a lot. I would always, they don't like me, blah, blah, blah. So it's more of just a learning experience that I take from it, because it was very hard. I always felt like I had something to prove. And being from a town that was very looked past back then, it wasn't a cool place. They would associate me with like drugs and gangs and all that stuff. And because I had friends like that who would, when we'd go to the contest, they were there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that, and around like 22, I was kind of burning out, but I was still like going for it, but it was hard finding sponsors. And I went back to school. At like 19, I started training a lot of jiu-jitsu. So that was really helping me a lot with training. And that's why I was doing the yoga and eating good. I stopped like eating all fast food and drinking soda. And it was I was much different, but I'd go to the contest and still party, and like, because you're traveling the world, you don't have, so you just, it's like a frat. You're just doing that. But I was very in tune with everything else, knowing, you'd party all night and then surf your heat, but I wouldn't eat McDonald's. It was like, whatever. But it was funny. And
you got to draw the line somewhere.
I got to draw the line somewhere.
Well, I just have to say, dude, like surfing with you, you're hands down the best surfer I know.
Yeah.
Like hands down.
Thank you.
And I remember the first time I saw you, it was actually at ZJ's. I was there with a buddy, and I forget what I was doing there, just going into the surf shop and probably getting a pair of shorts or, something that you do at a surf shop.
Yeah.
And my buddy was like, "Oh, that's Justin. He's a local pro." And I remember seeing you, and I was like, "Oh, no shit. Oh, cool. Like, that's awesome. I hope he does really well." Because it's like, you don't ever see people from around here on the tour.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not something that you ever saw. Australia, totally. Absolutely. Hawaii, of course. And, then... So it was like really cool to see a local Venice kid,
totally,
like getting out there. And because for people that don't really know, Venice was like, it's totally different now than what it was when you and I were kids.
Yeah.
I grew up in Santa Monica, and I mean, we were not welcome in Venice.
Yeah, totally. It was way different.
Oh, like, yeah, no, we did not.
You
go to
couldn't
Venice.
leave that little 3 mile, square 3 miles right there that Venice is.
No,
we were our own island.
Yeah,
it was like I was off of Rose, so I was like almost Santa Monica. They messed with me. I had to like make sure that they knew that I was from Venice. And it was totally a different scene then. And that's also then another reason why, how you said that you don't see local pros in the area. And I had Rick Massey and Strider, who I got to see do pretty well. Strider obviously now being pipe charger, the WSL commentator now. And he brought me to Hawaii my first time at 14. And that really opened up my eyes to so much, because I got to see, I was hanging in a house with Andy Irons and all the pros, and it was really, and seeing waves like that. And you understand why a town like Venice, when they don't have the surfers, it's hard to get that push. Like in Huntington, you have the sponsors and the surfers, and all, that's what their deal is.
Yeah.
Venice has always been more of that eclectic, kind of more artsy, creative type, so to see like more of a jockey type in a way, because I've always tried to break that mold of being a competitive surfer. But then free surfing, like I loved longboarding because I'd hang at Malibu. I rode for Scott Anderson, who had some of the best longboard surfers in the world, as well as, he had a competitive surfer. So I got to travel with these guys and surf with some of the best surfers. When Rick was coming up, he was like my mentor. But then I loved surfing like single fins and boards because it was just that flow and that feeling.
Yeah.
But then there was a time where I had to make that choice, and because you couldn't, when I was doing it, there was no real photo guys then. You couldn't just be a free surfer like now with Instagram and just ride boards and have a pretty Instagram and you can make a good deal, which is fine. I think that's great. It's beautiful that someone can make their own path now. But back then we didn't have that choice. So it was like I had to do the contest, and I am competitive, so I liked it, but it was just, you have to change your surfing. So being that competitive, that was like when they said to you, your friend, local pro, it's like, because I'm doing these contests, I'm going around the world for that, then just seeing me on the front of the building doing an air, it's a different thing. I'm only on that building because I won this contest and got this sponsor, than just like, oh, this is this good surfer, but let's give him clothes, and he runs his own Instagram and YouTube page and all this. That's awesome, because it's given these people the opportunity to do whatever they want. I do feel the actual performance level of surfers, there's still the great ones, but who can make it is not quite like it was, I think. Like when you watch the Andy Irons and those generations, and some of the guys, Dane Reynolds was with me, and I watch him surf. And he still outsurfs the majority of everyone who surfs with him, who are the younger up and coming guys up in Ventura. And it's amazing, and he's got his kids and businesses, and he's always joking he's not in shape, and
he still rips. Now let's go back to when you were 22 and you were kind of getting burned out from surfing. You went back to school. Then what happened?
So I got another I think I got a 3-year contract, and I did the last little bit of the QS, and I was going to school, and I was kind of just in a funky, like, whatever. I think I even kind of faded on my jiu-jitsu some. And I was just, it wasn't really there like I wanted it, but I was more like I was holding on because that's just what I was doing. Because I didn't really want to let go of my dream. I still had in my mind like world champ, whatever it was. And I was in like a relationship and just so many things going on, and I was then started going. No, I kept going. Then I went through the next 3 years, but it was just going on. This is my last chance. Like I really wanted it then, and then for when that contract was ending, because I was 25, I was just like, I didn't go back to school until I was 25, I think, or 24. At 22, I started feeling this is my last, kind of go at it. And it's weird because you think 22, like I know. I look at that now and I'm 38, and I look at 22 and I'm ready to just retire my dream.
It's crazy. That's a lot of pressure for a 22-year-old. And
I slowly started seeing these things, and that's why once I turned 24, because when I saw that and I got like my contest kind of up, but I was having these like heats where I'd have like a 9 and need like a 3, and the waves would go flat, or I'd get a 2.9 on my last wave, and it was just like, what is going on? This isn't for me. And then I started not really, enjoying it because I was taking it as like, this is my job. I need to do this because I need to make this heat for this and this. And I was traveling to places and not appreciating where I was. And wanting to just get back home or do whatever. And I started even thinking like, this is such a stupid route that I've taken, where if I just spent the last 4 years from 18 to now and paid the same amount of money to go to college, I would have a degree in something. And I really was just like, this is crazy. And then my contract ended. I lost my last event, which I had a 9. My last event was Santa Cruz. I had a 9.5, and it went high tide, and I needed a 1.9.
Oh man,
a 1.9
to win,
to just advance the heat. Yeah, to win. Yeah,
to win your heat.
And this guy had 2 5s. So and I had 1 wave, and it went flat because the tide picked up, and they put it on hold for 5 hours after my heat. And I was just like so pissed. I was walking up the rocks, and I slipped and fell. I bit a hole in my board.
You're
I was
kidding.
just like, I'm done.
Oh,
I'm
man.
not. I can't. I just was so over it. And so then I stopped, and I was just like, I'm out. I'm gonna go. But I was just not happy. Like I was just not in a happy place then with just whatever. I was just like, I guess this is just what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to get married, buy a house here, whatever, the whole American dream, whatever. And then and then at 27 or 26, 27, it just was like, okay. I ended up like having to break up. Busted my leg, my knee. I tore my MCL. I got back into jiu-jitsu, tore my MCL within like a week. I had a job at Arbor, and I was actually making pretty good money, and I was saving money and doing all kinds of things. And I lost that job because they stopped doing the surf program. So they were doing it at first. So I had that. Then I broke up. Then I blew my knee out. I'm like, well, this really sucks. And so I decided that was like April, May, June. I think that's literally how it went. And I was like, went to the party mode of whatever. I'm like on unemployment and single and in Venice. What better town is there ever than from 21 to 30 than Venice, where there's good looking people and parties every day. Yeah. So I did that, and then all of a sudden, like around December, I was just like, I'm going to Europe. I'm out of here. And I hated surfing at this point. I was like, I didn't want to even surf. Really? I was just like, no, I'm not. I'm over it.
Well, let me ask you something really quickly, because it's so interesting to me, because so many people, and myself included, like dreamt of becoming professional surfer, like dreamt about it. Like that is the dream life.
Of course.
Like to be like,
and it is. I realize I lived a real dream life. Like the people I got to meet, to the waves I got to surf, to the things I got to do. Everyone wants to be around a surfer. Yeah. Like you could be a rock star and put a pro surfer there, and the pro surfers tend to get a lot of the attention. Really? Because they want to ask them about the waves or whatever it is. Yeah. How big of a wave did you see? Have you seen a shark? Is this? And like when you think about it, like surfers are like when you have the groupie girls and then you have the pro host surf girls, you're like, well, why wouldn't like girls or why wouldn't people want to hang out with surfers? Usually they're like in good shape. Yeah. They're very outgoing. They're in nature. They're, pretty confident, strong people if they're traveling and going surfing waves and pushing themselves. And so it's a very different type of person.
But I don't think people understand or really appreciate how difficult it is too.
And that's it. Yeah.
Like it's not just all of the glamour, like an awesome rock star lifestyle, surfing amazing waves. It's also a business. It is. And a cutthroat business too. And very competitive, very challenging, difficult. And, there's only a couple of handful of people who really do extremely well
Yeah.
in that industry.
Totally.
I think that's what makes surfing kind of different than a lot of other industries is there's only like a couple of handful, like a dozen people who do really well.
For sure.
Everybody else is struggling.
Totally.
I remember I saw this documentary on a surfer, an Australian guy, I forget his name at the moment, but a big surfer back in the day, probably, 20, 30 years ago. And he was, I looked up to him. He was a surfer I admired, and I really liked how he surfed his style, and he ripped and he surfed hard, and he got barreled. And I remember I saw an interview with him, and he's like, I can't make it. Like, it's hard. Like, you don't understand. I have to pay to go to these places all by myself. And he's like, and I have a wife and we have a baby. And like,
that's what's crazy.
Like he couldn't afford to be a professional surfer. And he was in that elite group.
The guys now who are in the top, whatever it is, 44, whatever CT it is now, the influencer Instagram pro guys and free surfers are doing way better than them. Like they don't even have sponsors, some of these guys, but they're just that wanting it. Yeah. Some of the Brazilians, and surfing it's too subjective. And that's what's beautiful about now, that it's getting accepted, where if someone surfs beautiful, you see it'll draw the attention from anyone. You watch a wave. That's what is so unique about surfing, where when someone surfs a wave, and you're like, I know so many times I've kicked out on a wave that I'm just literally just cruising to the beach, like on a longboard or something. And people will come up to you and who are just tourists, and they're like, that was so beautiful. Like there's just something, because you're like literally like walking on water. Yeah. It's just, and that's where we all came and fell in love, was that glide.
Yeah.
But then we want to go so radical. It's like, oh, let's do yoga and then start doing backflips in the middle of the practice. And you're just like, well, if that's your game and you're doing it, you can, but it might be a little awkward here, but it's your practice. And that's what surfing is. You can't judge that person, and it's beautiful to have that. But then there is the competitive side. That's to be competitive. What sucks is, what I think is great about the wave pools is now you're all equal on competing. So if you want to do it like X Games style, do it that way. But if you're going to do it competitive, you do need the whole tour, because it's too unfair if you're going to do it in the ocean to have one spot world champion like that, Yeah. So it's cool to see like these guys who are really pushing, because they are on a crazy different level, to do those radical turns on solid waves, and it's impressive. But it's more of that acrobatic, more of that jock kind of, you have to put yourself there. There's great free surfers who could do well on the tour, and then there's some that would never do well on the tour, but you watch them surf and it's so beautiful. Yeah. Because just the lines that they draw. And why is that? Well, some people like different paint, some people like different music. So you really can't, it's just too subjective and to judge. Everything has its own worth to the eye of the beholder.
Who is your favorite surfer?
I always changed. I mean, I loved like Tom Curran and Kelly Slater. I loved Taylor Knox for a while. Rob Machado. I had all these guys when that generation. And then I loved the Parkinson and Fanning and Dean Morrison. Yeah. A lot of Aussies, because they had that down the line, very polished style. Yeah. But I used to I've always kind of felt like having like an idol or hero or favorite something, you kind of limit yourself, your own potential. It's totally. Like that heroism, like, and you'll never get to where you should be. So I kind of took things that I liked of everyone and put it together, and just adapt it my way. And which is another reason why I say being judged is very hard. And there's certain things that I just loved how someone did one thing, but I'd hate how he surfed backside, or I loved how he did a cutback, but when he tries to do this, it's, so I never really, I just like good surfing. Yeah. And when I'd watch certain things, when I was competing, it was more on getting the scores. So it was less of even watching surfers, because you were just going, I have to put my board here, do this. I mean, when I was younger, I loved doing airs, and that was before airs were even trying to be part of, like getting judged well. And I would blow so many heats racing down the line and just do one air and probably not make it, and just go for it. And people would be like, why did you do that? You would have won. But that's why I also have a 9 and then 1. But yeah, now I look back and I just go, I had the greatest time. I'm very grateful for the life that I've had. Like I said, it was like a frat. I partied and surfed and hung out with beautiful women, and everything that I've dreamt of as a Grom, I got, except for a world title. But when I realized just the things of like traveling the world and doing all these things that I got to do, even meeting my wife on the beach, like she's running the beach where I surf every day, and I like chased her down. And it's like, that was, if I didn't fall back in love with surfing, because even though I hated it for that little bit of time and all the crazy things, it just grabbed me. And that's where, when I said like in December, to go back onto that, I fell back into love with surfing because I went on a trip through Europe to just go get away from everything. And one of the biggest, that wave Nazare, which is the big rave now, it was when it first got noticed. That swell was coming in, and Garrett McNamara was surfing it, and it was the Hercules swell. And I was just so happened to be in San Sebastian, Spain, and I got to surf Mundaka. Well, I just got the chills right now, because that feeling of like how much the ocean and surfing meant to me, like came back into me. Like I was landlocked, just traveling in trains and stuff, and just feeling like just not, I was not grounded or in any bit of inside myself connecting with anything. It was just very numb. And once that, I saw the ocean, and I was writing at the time and taking photos, and it was just a very like grabbing it. And I met a guy who took me to surf Mundaka, and gave me a board wetsuit, and it was just like, oh, I'm a surfer again. I left, went to Madrid, and then came back for the next swell because it got better. Then left and came back again, and I just fell back in love. And that's when I fell into like wanting to shape surfboards, because I emailed Scott Anderson, where I grew up, the factory I grew up in, and I was like, hey, I'm coming back. I have these ideal boards. Can I have my job fixing boards again back? Because I know I bailed on you. It's just like, and then it was like I refound myself, joy spiritually. I started wanting to do the yoga, and I met Regina, my wife, running the beach. After I start shaping, I'm surfing, she's on the beach, all this. Then I meet you doing yoga. And now it's been like all these things. I got back into my jiu-jitsu. Everything just came back, and I'm like, oh, was it very, very good? I mean, I could go crazy through all the things in between with, Yeah. But, you get in dark places, and you have to find those dark places. You have to dig yourself out to find the beauty, and, the lotus comes out of the mud. So it's, and now it's like, it's almost like the less I have, and the more I get rid of, and it's like the more I have. I'm just much more, yeah.
Now I want to ask you about airs. I'm gonna take this to a personal side quickly, because recently I've been working on boosting airs. So I started surfing at 11. I was a boogie boarder, bodyboarder, boogie boarder until I was 11. Then I took it to my feet. When I was in junior lifeguards at County, so State Beach, so right there by the main lifeguard tower. And
that's where I like learned how to surf over like the first little jetty.
Oh yeah, me too.
Nini's. They called it Nini's when my dad was a kid, and I used to call it the Nini's Famous Weenies. It was a hot dog stand.
Oh,
this was like I'm thinking like the 60s or something, 70s, because my dad was born in 52.
because my family
rented his first surfboard.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I remember that because my family moved there in the 60s.
Yeah. Then they even know.
Because my family lived in the Santa Monica Canyon.
Okay.
On Entrada.
That's my first sponsor, was when Entrada Surfboards was right there.
Gary?
That's great.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's when I got, that was right after I surfed my first contest. Then my friend brought me, do you remember Trey?
I was neighbors with Trey.
Yeah, you were neighbors with Trey.
I just found a bunch of his wrong clothes. I got a bunch of his wrong clothes in my closet.
Wait, you had to because you lived right there.
Yeah, no, we were neighbors.
I was just thinking about Trey the other day too. Yeah.
Have you talked to him?
I haven't. I gotta call him. I sent his son a message and he gave me his number and I didn't call him, so I gotta call him.
Yeah, tell him I said hello. I mean, it's been forever.
Yeah, same.
So I started surfing at 11, and then at 15, I moved to Salinas for high school. Big mistake. A lot of things happened in Salinas. I was raised by a single mom, and she was moving to Salinas. I was staying in Santa Monica with my aunt because I loved Santa Monica.
Yeah.
I was surfing. I was going to Paul Revere. I went to Canyon Elementary, Paul Revere Junior High. I loved it. I loved going to the beach all the time. I was surfing. I grew long hair. I had puka shells.
I mean, that's why everyone moves here.
Yeah.
And literally,
I had the lifestyle. And then I moved to Salinas at 15 because my mom was living there, and my mom and I are really close. And I hated it. I hated Salinas. It was really bad. Yeah,
it's kind of interesting. There's good waves if you...
No, so Salinas is 20 miles east of Monterey.
Oh, yeah. But I'm just saying, if you went straight to the beach from there, you're closer to Santa Cruz if you want to do the little bit of trek and Moss Landing. But it is, it's still away from the beach.
And I didn't have the means.
Exactly.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't drive. My mom was a single mom, working. So I was landlocked in Salinas, and I don't have to talk about my high school experience, but it was pretty bad.
Oh, I'm sure. I know how that's it's pretty much like Oxnard.
Yeah. I mean, it was
with the farms and gangs. Yeah.
Oh, the gangs were really bad. I mean, my first day, so I was a football player too. And my first day in high school, I was going to play football, and I went to high school my first day, and I saw 3 dudes in different situations get taken to the hospital in ambulances because they got the crap beaten out of them.
Crazy.
Really badly.
Yeah.
And I saw it. I saw the fights happen. They weren't even really fights, they got jumped.
Yeah,
one dude would get jumped by 10 dudes, and they're skull, kicking him in the face while he's on the ground.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, Venice had some of that when I was young too.
Yeah.
I remember.
No. I mean,
I didn't go to high school, so it was a little different. But I still had guns pulled on me in junior high and stuff. That's how crazy, Yeah. But then when you got to the high school, up there, that's when they're going to the hospital because they have so much more power at that age to just stomp and jump. You're literally,
Well, it was 9th through 12th grade.
Yeah.
So I was 15. Going to school with 18-year-olds who had beards. They were 6'2" and had beards, and they were men. You know what I'm saying? And
totally.
I was a little stick figure.
That's how I was.
I had to lose the puka shells. I had to turn my bowl cut. Yeah, I had to turn my bowl cut into a slick back because Salinas is all Latino.
Yeah.
I mean, 98% Latino.
I drove through there a bunch of times, got gas and food on the way to Santa Cruz and up north. And
oh, man.
Surfing, yeah.
It was gnarly. It was pretty gnarly, and the gangs were really bad. So anyways, go to Salinas, and then my mom tells me when I'm 16 that we're moving to Boise, Idaho.
That's where I remember you said.
And I basically threw my arms up and was like, oh God, there it goes. There goes more distance away from the surf.
Yeah.
And moved to Boise at 16, and I was there until 22. And I'll tell you, dude, there wasn't a single day that went by I didn't think of surfing. Not a single day. But
once you get that.
Yeah, once you get it in you and you feel it. And I remember my first good wave. It was First Point, Malibu. And, I surfed the jetty. And back then the jetty was just, shore pound.
Yeah, totally.
If you get one turn, you're lucky. And I remember in junior lifeguards, we took a day trip up to First Point. And I got a longboard, and I remember I can see it today. I stood up on the wave, and it was probably like waist high.
That wave has a lot of magic in it.
Oh, I didn't realize they made waves like that.
Yeah.
Like this was real. I got to my feet and I'm like, wow, this is actually like, I can stand here. And then I started making like turns. I'm like, whoa, I can like actually turn on it. And there's still plenty of wave ahead of me. And so when I moved to Boise, and all throughout the 2 years that I lived in Salinas, every day I thought of surfing. So as soon as I got back to Santa Monica, because I moved straight back to the Santa Monica Canyon at 22 in 1998, started surfing immediately. Got a surfboard. I got like an 8-foot board. It was made by Mike Perry, single fin, like loved it. And I just started surfing every day. But I realized that I missed out on some extremely influential surf years,
for sure.
Like extremely,
especially if you had that bug already. Everything I think that's such a huge those ages right there of learning things and like really taking it to that jump because you're growing and stuff is huge.
It's huge. Like that's when you're doing the airs.
Yeah, you're learning how your body moves and everything, and
as
how
it
the
grows.
wave moves.
And so I missed out on all those years, but I'm slowly trying to make it back.
Yeah.
But recently, and I kind of like just was like, airs aren't going to be for me. I missed out on those years, and that's just not going to be it. But up until we moved into this house, I was surfing 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
I was just going every day, just going to El Porto. I wake up at 5, meditate, do my meditation, hit the beach, surf, get out before the meters start at 8.
Yep.
Then I'm back before everybody else wakes up in the house.
That's perfect. Yeah.
So I was going 5 to 6 days a week, and my surfing got back.
It will.
Like it came back strong. I was surfing really well. I was really stoked, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for an air. Like, why not? Like I was 46. I'm 47 now. I'm like, I'm going for some airs. Why not? I have a consistent yoga practice. My body's still changing. I feel strong. I'm flexible. I'm balanced. I'm grounded. I'm focused. Like I'm just going to go for it. So I started going for it, and I started boosting. But how do you keep the board underneath you?
So, when you're riding like a skateboard down the sidewalk, and you get that little tiny crack, and you just like kind of lift, and the back kind of hits it, and it kicks it right into your foot. That's basically what you're going to do when you hit the top of the wave. So if you that's where I say, where like growing up in those are such pivotal years of having your technique become very flawless. Effortless comes from continuous effort. Becomes effortless. And that's where that effortless technique is, because it's that continuous effort that you're putting into every turn you do. So when you get older, you now have power. That turn is now going to be so effortless and finesse through it without any power or any extra effort. You don't have to put that extra effort into it anymore, because you've done it so many times that now having the muscle and memory with the strength of an adult muscle is now there. So that comes. So when you're coming off like the bottom turn and you see that section, when you go to hit it, you don't need the power, but you have that thrust off that bottom turn. That's where your power's coming in, to where it's like that spring that you get off the lip. Like with yoga, it's very isometric. It's not that dynamic strength where you're, we're not going to be getting people yanking people towards us as well as like wrestlers. But you'll get that pushing away, like that strength of holding in handstands. So that's where that learning time, when you're so elastic as a kid, to be able to do that your body gets so used to it. I think that has a huge part. But you're not saying you can't learn it. And that's why just remembering it's that timing. So you have to get that timing down. So if you, regardless of how much technique that timing and positioning, it's all rhythm.
For sure.
That's it. It's just like how when our breath through jumping through,
And I see it too. Like I see the section, I know it's all timing. And when I do get it right, I feel the launch and I've gotten up. I just haven't been able to keep the board underneath me.
And sometimes boards, like those boards that I've made you aren't as much of like air boards, I would say.
Yeah.
They're more of like a down the line, like kind of more flowy, carvy board than going for like a performance board. If you want to get like, there's a reason why, like, okay, the guys on tour, yes, they're phenomenal. But if you felt their boards, it's like paddling. Like when I feel the boards that I used to ride, I'm like, how did I ever? And I'm lighter now than I was then. I was like 10 pounds heavier then. Yeah. I'm like, this is crazy. How did I even get this board going? But not to say that I don't have certain boards that I can do things, I could still do airs on. I tried one the other day for the first time in a while at Rincon. It was totally off timed. Like the wave moved away. And this guy says it, but I was like, oh, why did I even try that? Like, I just landed back on the board. The board came away from me. I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. Landed back on my feet. I was like, I really hope no one saw that. I'm starting to look like an old man. But then I got a couple all the way through to the rocks and I felt good. So I know it's still there. I think, and that's where I'm riding actually a small version of the quad that I made you. So that's why I know that board it's kind of a more down the line board, not a board for, if you're going to want something like that, you're going to go with more of like a fatter, small short board. So when you get that pivot, it's going to thrust you through right there, but it's also very fine tuned. So you can get it to pop out and light the lightness.
The thrusty board you shape for me. Yeah. That's the one that I typically try to go for the airs on. I mean, on the quad,
that one's much more of probably actually, that's because it is like a short board, that one. Yeah. The quad one. But that one still, it was a little more, that's good. That one's pretty good for that, actually, now that I think about it. Because I thought it was more of a step up, but no, that was not too much of a step up.
Not too much.
No, I think
it's 6 foot.
Yeah.
6'1", maybe. Yeah. I think it's, but it's a great board. And it's not like I'm trying to perfect it. I'm just,
it's also the wave. I'll tell you, like, it's hard on like El Porto is a kind of a like softer wave. Like there's power, but it will break up kind of at the higher part of the wave.
Totally.
So it's not as like steep and standing up. Yeah. So when you go to hit that section, you kind of go out of the wave.
Yes.
And that's what's weird is because you're trying to pull back in.
Yes.
So the board sometimes wants to keep going.
That's exactly what's been happening to me.
Get it at that perfect timing of that little crumble lip to push it back in front.
Ah, that makes sense.
So like a lot of like those air reverses that everyone does.
Yeah.
And I used to do them all the time where I could like basically do them so easy was because of surfing waves like that where literally all I'm doing is trying to get my board to stay into the wave. So I'm overcompensating, throwing the tail so far forward that it has to spin completely around because I'm pulling the board towards me. And it shouldn't ever, you want to have that pushing pull motion, you know? So when you go to that push, they'll fly away from you a lot if the wave's flat. Yeah. Unless you pull it. So then when you pull it, you're now bringing it in front. Yeah. But if you have a good, like, down the line steep wave that's jacking up with a section coming and you just want to do a big straight air, you need it like a more straight up wave because then it's going to hit you more straight up and you'll get that like height.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense because that's what has been exactly happening to me.
It's also like the different, you see on like the difference of like the big air and snowboarding versus the half pipe, how it's more steep because it's not going as far where they're going, or like when they're doing the backflips on the dirt bikes, they're going to have more of a kick. Yeah. It's real straight up to get that momentum. And their bottom turns basically like torquing the throttle. Yeah. So that's what's going to get it that way.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Now I want to talk about your practice.
Okay.
Let's talk about your yoga practice. So
all right.
You go to Europe, you surf Mundaka, you get the bug again and you're surfing again. And then you come back, you talk to Anderson, you start shaping. You're back in your jiu-jitsu, which I want to get into a little bit more as well. But you're back into your jiu-jitsu. You meet your future wife, Regina, who's awesome. And then you start practicing. So tell me, let's talk about your practice for a little bit.
Yeah. So I think partially with that trip to Europe is where so interesting with my yoga practice is I did a lot of self-healing, and I think I got healed more spiritually than even with the surfing. And that's where I know where the surfing came and connected me spiritually, because surfing's like a yoga practice. You get in that flow and you kick out of a wave, and it's like
there's nothing better
after a long there's
nothing better.
So I reconnected with my spirit, and which then I think that's where I see like, okay, my spirit, well, being a surfer, I connected back with that natural source, my source. And then I chase that part more. And then I meet my wife because I'm now connected, feeling comfortable again with being myself. And I feel like I've heard it before, but yoga chooses you. You don't choose yoga. Mm-hmm. And I truly felt like, okay, you've really put in this time of working on finding yourself and working with your spirit to bring your spirit, awaken it more. Yeah. And when we went to your class, I did a couple other little classes and stuff, but when I went to Patagonia, that one first morning, it was just like so random. We chose to go, and we almost walked out because it was full, and we're like, I didn't even know if we had mats, and we had mats. They didn't have any.
Yeah, they didn't have any there.
Yeah, so we had mats, and because I did some at my house, but I did like a total different, like it was more of like a movement, things that whatever. And you were super cool, and Regina's really picky with like people and reading people, and she's like, and she loved your teaching because you're not pushy, that woo-woo spiritual teacher. You connect though with knowing that yoga really is a journey of going deep in yourself, you know, and you're just aligning yourself to be able to go deeper. I've found for myself at least. And when I did your practice, I was like, wow, this was kind of basic but strong. I felt like so rejuvenated, but just stretched out. And I felt like just having the intentions you would choose. I'm like, wow, I really needed that today. And that's what drew me to have a little bit more of the spiritual side that I saw of yoga, where I was the intention of what I'm really doing it for. And excuse me. And so we started going on those Sundays, and then you even invited us to go to, I remember I like tried to tip you or something. You're like, no, bro. Like, don't worry. I'm like, well, I do boards. Like, let me fix your board or whatever. You're like, okay, maybe I'll do that. And then you invited us to the Yoga Works ones. And then it was like, oh shit, 90 minutes. And those when I was sweating, just like, wow. Like, and I've gone a lot. I went to power yoga before. I had a buddy, a Brazilian guy, Adriano, who started teaching there, and he was giving me practices. This was way back when I was doing the jiu-jitsu, like around my 19 to 20-ish. And I was doing it then, but it was more of like for those, for just working out, whatever, to be fine-tuned. And then, since then, which that was like, Regina and I have been together 9 years now. And so that was like pretty early on. So probably like 8 years ago. And I just was like, I'm going to just, well, all the things that you do that I can remember, I'm going to do it on my own every morning. And then whenever I can make it to your class, that I'm going to go. And then we started getting hooked where we're like, okay, let's go. And I made you those boards and you traded with me. And I was like, okay, sweet. I'm going to keep going because it's like, I love bartering with people with like boards and practice of something that they care for. And you're giving pieces of yourself.
Yeah,
that
me too.
is on that, you're connecting each other's spirits. You're bringing this life. And so it was just very consistent. And I had a few other friends. Calvin, he let me go to some of his, and because I fixed some boards for him. So I was just like getting this hook, like where people are like, well, come to my class. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm not even like asking. They want my board. Okay, fine. Here, I'll do this or fix your board. And it was like such a connecting, just felt good. And I was just doing it on my own. And I had a couple injuries even that I went through my back and knees, and I was just healing them. You know, I was just feeling good, but mentally I was just constantly feeling just when I was down or whatever, it was just really awakening me, where I was seeing my flaws and the good and bad, that, you know, the yin yang that I needed to balance constantly.
Yeah.
And I stayed consistent. Regina kind of faded. She really faded as soon as I got certified. She's like, shut the hell up. Don't tell me to do this. I don't want to put my arm there. Keep your hip down.
Teaching your spouse is hands down the most difficult person to teach.
Like,
hands down. Hands
just
down.
breathe and bring in whatever you're feeling.
Yeah, I remember when you came to my first class with me at Patagonia, because I remember you. I was like, oh, hey, there's Justin.
Yeah,
there he is. Cool, awesome. And then I saw you there, and you were practicing, and you came up to me afterwards, and you thanked me for the practice, and then you left, and then you came back again, and then again, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then we started like talking, and then I invited you to the Yoga Works class, because the class that I had at Patagonia was like, I had to like tone it down.
Yeah, totally,
because it was a free class. It was a free class to the community. Anybody can come for free. So with that, like it attracted a level of yoga, I'll say. Yeah. That you couldn't like, and plus it didn't have the space, or wasn't set up for like doing handstands or stuff like that. So then I invited you, and then I remember you were like, oh yeah. Damn. Okay, now this is a yoga class.
I was even going to El Segundo to some of your classes.
Yeah, dude.
To Westwood. Yeah. I was just like, yeah. And then
we did the board trade. So you made me 2 boards. I gave you a bunch of private lessons. Yeah. And I still think I got the better end of the deal. I mean, I really do.
Well, I'll take as many. Sure, why not?
No, I see. That's why I want to hook you up with a retreat, because. I still think I got the better end of the deal, and B, I want to surf with you, dude. Yeah, and I want to surf like amazing waves with you. Like, you know, we're talking about Tahiti. Yeah. I've only surfed Teopu once, and I would love to surf it with you.
I haven't, and I would love to. I always say that I'm like freaked out and stuff, and then I want it, and then I don't want it. But
you want that wave. You want that wave.
It's just so beautiful, and it's like,
it's magic. It's magic. And here's the thing about Tahitians is they're friendly. Yeah. In the water.
Yeah, I know a few that are super cool. Some of the guys I used to compete with.
So I've surfed, you know, all through, since not near as many places as you, I'm sure, but I've surfed Costa Rica a couple of times. I've surfed Nicaragua a couple of times and all over there. I've surfed Panama, you know, Mexico countless times. I've surfed Brazil countless times because I lived there. Portugal, Indonesia, Hawaii, Tahiti, and all over California. Yeah. And Tahiti's the only place to date where I had a local give me a set wave.
Oh, that's what I heard. Like, they'll paddle out and shake everyone's hand.
Yeah,
like,
everybody's really, super cool. Yeah. Like, everybody's there to share the experience. And I remember I was at a beach called Papara in Tahiti. Yeah. And it's like a black sandy beach break, but hollow. It's got like some reef in there, so it jacks and it forms this nice hollow wave. But a set was rolling in, and we're paddling out to it, and a local, he's got the wave, you know, because the locals have all the waves, and he looks over his shoulder and he sees me paddling towards it, and he's like, "Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
That's sick.
Get the wave." And it was like my best wave of the day. And everywhere I've ever surfed in my life, that has never happened. Not a single time. Actually, quite the opposite usually happens.
Yeah.
And Tahiti was the only place. So I want to get you to Tahiti. I want to surf Teopu with you. I've surfed it one time. Yeah. I came home with 7 stitches. Maybe 9.
Yeah.
But just because the reef is so sharp. I didn't hit it hard, but the reef is like razor sharp.
That's crazy.
Like I literally just...
That's why it's so crazy there, because so many places, like Pipeline's not really that sharp. There's like jagged edges, but it's like cement. It's smooth, yeah. With like holes in it. And jagged, because it gets beat down so much and the sand, I guess, moving. But since that's like an outer, so alive.
It's alive. And so
there's a lot of Puerto Ricos like that.
Really?
Yeah.
So I got brushed like just barely. So I got caught on the inside because not every wave at Teopu is perfect. Yeah. And it was my first session there, and I caught maybe like 4 or 5 waves before I got pushed onto the reef by a set. And I just barely just brushed it.
Yeah.
And I was paddling back out to surf more. And I was like, you know what, let me just check. I'm by the boat. I was right by the boat. I'm like, let me just look. And I looked and my knee was filleted open. Just like open.
Where's the lime?
It's exactly what they did. They squeezed lime on it and they took me to the car. They're like, you got to go to the hospital. Yeah. And so they took me straight to the hospital. I go to it's like a doc in a box. And it's so funny the way that Tahiti does it, because you go to the doctor and he writes you a prescription for you to go get all the stuff. I mean, I had anesthetics. Like I had the syringes. I had everything. Like, and I went home with it and I had to like throw it out. I'm like, I don't think I can fly with this.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm sitting there and the doctor's like, you see this? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's already getting infected.
Crazy.
Because the thing is the water in Tahiti doesn't have any iodine in it.
Oh, interesting.
And it's the iodine in the water that kind of fights off the infection. And plus, because the reef is alive, like you just get infected. Like it had been 45 minutes. It had been 45 minutes.
The fire coral too that they have like in the Caribbean. That
exactly.
Just like,
yeah, it'll get you. Like you got to go to the hospital right away.
Yeah, and if you barely hit it too, it just.
Oh yeah, no, I had 7 or 9 stitches, and that was just one spot on my knee. I mean, my feet were all cut up, my hands were all cut up, everything was just shredded, and I barely touched it. I didn't even think I was hurt. I was paddling back out to catch more waves. I was so bummed. I was so bummed, and then I still had another week in Tahiti, and I couldn't surf. I couldn't surf.
That sucks.
It was brutal. It was bad. Okay, so let's get back to, I want to talk more about your practice because I want to know how your practice then has evolved and how you've moved it into every aspect of your life. So then you started taking the classes with me, and then you started slowly weeding out your classes at Yoga Works. I remember. I did. Yeah, I started to leave.
And you were giving me some privates then, so I wasn't going as much. But I was still doing. I remember you gave me like a little thing for the primary series. Mm-hmm. You're like, I was going somewhere. Because I was leaving for Europe. That was like 4 years ago.
Yes,
that's what it was.
That's what
5 years ago, and I was leaving, and I was like, I'm bailing. I'm gonna go. Another mind thought. Let's just impulse. Like, let's just bail.
Yeah.
That's what we do, nomadic.
And it was before I had the online. It was before
you had the online. So you gave me, and to be honest, that's where my practice then jumped even like another, because I was already doing it. I was doing it twice a day, but 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. Because I started realizing how much just that mobility and movement, mostly just like, Surya Namaskar A and B and those to get me going, like to go surf or train jiu-jitsu, because I was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu at 7 a.m. So I would wake up, do a little practice real quick, just breathing. It would be like 30 to 45 minutes. I can't possibly do that now. Every time I say I'm doing 20 minutes, 30 minutes,
it's an hour.
Hour and a half. Yeah. I'm like, what the heck? Gina's like, real quick practice. Great. I'll see you at 11. You were in there since 5. What do you do? So I then left. And when I was over in Europe, Regina had to fly back here because she got a huge order with 3 people, which I stuffed like 500 slippers in my board bag and sent her back because they wouldn't let her put it on the plane or in a box and mail it because we couldn't get it through her business. It was weird, crazy.
Huh.
So I filled a board bag, sent her back.
That's funny. That's hilarious. 500 pairs of sandals.
And I was living in Peniche by myself
I love Peniche.
For a month without her in the winter. Were you there in the winter?
Yes. I was there in the winter.
There's like nothing going on there.
Peniche, so we had to move to the Algarve.
Oh, okay.
Because nothing was happening in Peniche.
Yeah.
We got a couple of swells in Peniche. We got super tubes once.
Yeah, I was surfing
one
there.
day.
It was perfect while I was there every day.
Oh.
But I just meant because when Regina got there, it was like raining, and it's an old like prison island.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of has a little creepy-ish.
Were you on Baleal?
No, we were on like the Peniche Super Tubos, like out at the point over there.
Yeah.
So we were like there's a gypsy, like full gypsy like community there.
Really?
Yeah. So
don't
there's
remember
like it's like a pretty trippy place, like when you're on that side. And that's where my practice started getting different because I was like, I'm like basically on a deserted island by myself. Nothing was open.
Yeah.
I'd go to the little farmer's market thing, grab my food, come back, practice, write, breathe. My friends were in Lisbon who I was hanging with, go surf. And there was the cliffs. And I found this place to just sit, and I felt like, and I wasn't smoking or anything then. I was like dry up there, not even drinking. And I was finding these like kind of psychedelic, like meditation trips that I was sitting on like the edges of the cliff meditating, where I felt like I was flying and like watching the waves coming through, which was how I fell back in love with surfing in San Sebastian, watching just the way the ocean was moving. Mm-hmm. So I would do that. That was part of my practice because I would either start the morning off doing that and then go back to the house as it was warming up with the heater and then do my yoga and then my asana practice.
Yeah.
Or I would do the opposite. And so I started doing that that's where my practice started just getting like longer and longer. From sometimes it'd be 2 hours. Yeah. Sometimes I would just go, well, I'm going to do it again tonight. And then I would do it in the night. And I was literally doing it like every day. And it was yoga, go down, surf, make food, go back, read, talk to Regina if she was up yet because she's on the other side of the world. And just write random, just really like, and I was like, had this plan of doing like stuff that I wanted to do, like with boards and write, but I was like, no, and then just make this my time again. And I just like connected with myself more. And then when Regina got over there, we were like trying to figure it out, but I just don't think it was really our time to move there and do things. And then my family was in the page of like selling the place and stuff in Venice. So we were coming back because we were going to maybe try to help save it, whatever. And but we still were there for another month, and then we did another month after that. So I was there like gone for like 5. We started off, we went to Russia to see her family, and I was doing the practice then. They were so nice. So they would all like move out of the way, like move things for me to do my yoga, and like,
wow, that's cool.
Watch me, yeah. And then we went to Uzbekistan, and there I was still doing my practice, bringing my mat and everything. I was just like, I just really was focusing, and it was all things that from like what I learned, but then from your classes, and then the primary. But I was getting confused on the primary because I never had done Ashtanga yet. Yeah. I just had done Vinyasa, flow classes of using the asanas, but not using any of the, any like of a straight, everything the same guideline. Yeah. So
a sequence.
That sequence. Yeah. I was just like randomly throwing things in. And then I went, once we got to Portugal, I was doing it at my friend's house. I was staying in Lisbon, but then when Regina came, I was just on another page, and she even was like, I can't think she could feel like that I had like maybe just transitioned something different again. And then we went from there. We went down to Morocco. We're like, let's go. We're out of here. Let's go to Morocco. And then find a Riyadh and turn it into a dream. We'll go after every dream.
Yeah, good.
And then we figure out if we want it or not. That's the thing. Because then so we went there, and then we're like, well, I don't know, this guy's not what we thought or whatever. And we spent like a month or a little longer than that. Bought a bunch of shoes, raffia stuff that she sells on her site. And then we came back, and we were back for like a month, and then found our place in Oxnard. Moved up there. And we were there for a year, and I don't know if it was before, I think it was, then you started your class, your online. And so I started doing those, and I was like, these are awesome, because I could do 45 minutes and you're not putting any of the pranayama or meditation. You're just doing the practice. It's up to me. And you'd even like Shavasana, you'd have us go into however we wanted, and we'll leave it at that. Wouldn't like tell us to come out of it. So I would just lay there sometimes, and I really was like started understanding that sequencing much more of like, oh, I should do this to warm up this. And then I remember I wanted to bring you to Puerto Rico for a retreat, and you go, actually, I got a teacher training coming up, and this is right when COVID started. And you were like, how about you do the teacher training finally, and then you can lead it. And I was like, I don't know about this. And I decided, okay, fine, I'm going to go with it. And and it was the greatest, still to this day, investment to myself, just for accomplishing something, finishing something that I wanted to do. And the learning, the changing, the pushing myself in many times, because I deleted all my homework on one time, all of it that was supposed to submit. I'm like, I'm not done. I'm out of here, just like I did in school. Fuck this class. Well, I'll take it next year and finish. And it was just such a opening, and how you taught so much of it, and with what you went through in that time was so amazing to see how strong and just how everyone transformed throughout the whole practice. And I saw from you and Joan and all the students, we all like transformed, but even you guys, I saw you guys growing, and like just everyone was just elevating each other to the and it was such a good time and good thing that I did in that little bit of time that we were sitting around. I had the perfect space for it. And I thought about it as like, okay, it's something that I want to do and then teach. And then I was like, no, I'm going to do it just to do it and have it. And then it kind of was like, I wasn't sure, but I thought like, I'll teach. And when I graduated, I did do some teaching at some of the privates, which I still do some for friends. And I've been teaching at the jiu-jitsu people. But what I realized is I didn't want to jump, and I'm glad I haven't jumped into teaching at a school or something. I really have fine-tuned my practice to be my own. So now if I was going to teach, I know how I'm going to teach people. And so with doing that, I train jiu-jitsu and surfing. It's a much different way my body is. Also how I push myself through it. So when I know who I'm training, I can push through. Also, I said I've been getting a lot of massages and body work and just a lot of things. So my practice is now so much more of for me. I like, people want to practice me, and I'm like, well, I'll come and I'll give you a practice. I'll give you on your own, because mine is, I feel like what I eat through my feet and just my practice has gone into being, it's almost like I have mixed now like some Tai Chi with the breathing, also some mobility things. But then I still have some holds that are in some of the key points that I feel in my body that I need to work. But I do it so I can get my body in the morning, sometimes to go train jiu-jitsu today or surfing. But then when I was in Merida, Mexico all last week, I was doing long 1.5-hour, 2-hour practices where I was going through starting in Shavasana, very much what I learned from you, to then doing the core, doing some kind of Tai Chi breathing and some breath of fire in the beginning, standing, to then, Surya Namaskar A, B, and I do really build it and then go into like now a strong asana hold practice that I'm going through a strong sequence all the way through from, moving into like the inversions to back bends and sequencing it to finish my body to where I know where I want to peak, and then coming down and then doing my pranayama, then a shavasana, and then I come back, sit up, and then meditate. And I start with an intention, and I try to keep remembering that at the end of whatever mantra that I finish with, that I always have, and trying to bring that to have that flow into my mantra, whatever that intention. And if that word comes through, that just syncs with whatever I'm saying, because I always have that word has to sync in with one of the parts that I'm bringing. I know that I've connected and I'm aligned for that day. And it's really, I feel like now I'm on that point, and that's where wanting to maybe get into now exploring with teaching more to people and things on, because of what I've seen that has healed. Because since the yoga, I tore my MCL and my LCL, and then I hurt my neck, and all of them I've healed without going to the doctor, and I popped my ankle. And so I've had these injuries, and some of the injuries that could have been worse, because of the alignment and yoga and understanding my body through jiu-jitsu and that now have been able to avoid, but also I've been able to heal these injuries through yoga, through the breathing and the asana practice, because I understand where my body is.
What's amazing to hear is that you have really found your practice. Yeah. And that's, as being a teacher to you, I can't tell you how happy that makes me feel, because that's it. What, at least in my teaching anyways, I want people to find their practice. Yeah. I'm just offering what I've learned along my journey and what feels good in my practice and what I see and what I think will help people in their practice. But to hear you say that you've really found exactly what works for you, and I know that you've gone through like the practice in very fine detail to what really feels right in your body, in your breath, in your mind, and in your heart. And you've really created a practice for yourself that grounds you, but also heals you, and moves you forward. And as a tool, you use it as a tool to prepare yourself for what you have coming for that day. Yeah. Like, you're going to do jiu-jitsu, so you do a practice design to get you ready for your jiu-jitsu, which, dude, that's like exactly it. Yeah. I mean, if you want to start pursuing teaching, I support that 100%, and let me know how I can help you.
For sure. I appreciate it.
Matter of fact, I'm teaching in Venice right now.
I know. I got to come down and
dude, you got to come to my class. And
I think I'd be so nervous because, like, it's so weird. Like,
but I want to take your class.
Yeah, I would love to, like, because with you, I feel like I could show you sequence and guide you through my class. Yeah. As the journey that I take, because you're with the surfing and the way of understanding, how our bodies have worked from surfing's so bad for our body.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I stand one way and turn one way. Like, I got away so long at Rincon the other day, my neck started cramping. I'm like, why is my neck cramping? My legs just went out. This is how in tune with my body I am now. My legs started getting tired, and I've been running and stuff. I'm like, wow, that's a long way. I got like 5 of them all the way through.
Wow.
And I go and kick out this turn, and I'm like, whoa, every turn I'm doing, because I'm opening this shoulder and turning my neck, but I'm having it down. I'm just like tensing right there. And you don't realize these things like when you're surfing all of your life, because your body's just so used to that.
Yeah.
But now that I straighten my body and then I go paddle where you think it's a cobra, but it's not. You're just totally like back bending and like from the tailbone. It's like, so it's the total worst things you should do. So now it's like, I really have been pushing, and another thing, what I realized is with the practice is I do my practice to make myself feel good and not to do the practice and become certified for, to get certified. I learned so much for myself to heal myself inside and out. And I didn't want to just take like, okay, I graduate, I'm going to go jump on to teaching. Yeah. It's like when you graduate belts in jiu-jitsu, it's like you can teach as a purple belt, brown belt, black belt, you're now you're black belt. You can become a professor, teacher. But to become that master, you have to, that's when your journey starts, because now you've just learned, you've graduated to that journey of doing it. And that's where I feel like even with my surfing and my yoga, it's like I learned these things and I went through the classes of pro surfing. I went through the teacher trainings, but then it's those few years after that you just find your style, your practice, and you're actually connecting those things. And you realize why, like the 8 limbs, it's perfectly designed for this wheel to keep it rolling. Mm-hmm. Because if you do have and the why your mind, the meditation, samadhi, and all that is last, because each one of those things have to be right. Mm-hmm. You have to align your body to be able to breathe properly. You have to connect, super concentrate to then let everything go, Mm-hmm. Like Shavasana really is pratyahara, you're letting it all out and there. And that's why I try to do my pranayama before, so I get that breath, so I'm concentrating. And it's becoming that way. So for me to go teach in a class just to teach and make money or whatever, I feel like I was jumping ahead too fast. And so that's why even at the jiu-jitsu now, I sit in the corner and I finish, and then people have gravitated towards me. Oh, you do this, I have this. And then I show them a few things. And even like that foundation training that's very, strong right now. I did that with my back injury like 20 years ago, because Kelly Slater was into it, and Derek Fisher from the Lakers. And I remember them talking about it. And it's basically a lot of, like, when you really break it down after doing the teacher training, because Joan's so good with knowing the body and the exercise, anatomy and all that, and all the books that I still read, it's all the same movements. It's just basically taking out the spiritual side. And because they always want you to do the breathing and drop your shoulders, and you're just, everything's that way. Yeah. And when you line up everything in yoga, a lot of exercise routines are the same things, but they're just more intense. They put the intensity in it. So it's like when you jump forward, chaturanga, and that's almost like a burpee.
Yeah, totally.
Like, you're just doing it correctly, so that way you don't throw your shoulders out, and you macho, and you breathe through it. Yeah. And then everything's in a flow. So that's why now it's like I just do my thing my way, and everything's just the same way as yoga grabbed me and chose me to start practicing, and has helped me. I feel like that's what I'm going to have. It's now going to give me the opportunity to teach the people who want to come. And that's what I teach.
Where are you thinking?
Just wherever.
You want a studio?
If I do move to Puerto Rico and set up something that I do want to set up, right now I'm not in a place to where, that's another reason too, is I don't want to commit to anything. I don't like committing, because I liked the freedom of having nothing, no attachments. Yeah. So until I have that space where I'm like, this is it. Yeah. Then I'll draw it in. But I'll go teach, and that's why when people know, I let them know. Yeah, I teach yoga for certain way. It's helped me a lot, and I'd only do private because I want to be more in tune. Because I've seen in a lot of classes too, it's hard to teach people because if you're not watching them, they're going off overboard into whatever they want to, how far they want to go, and that could hurt their shoulder. And I want everyone to get that feeling, but also get it right. Totally. So when it's too much, if you don't understand it yet, your body, how are you going to understand 30 people in your class?
Well, you also, just like you were kind of alluding to earlier, once you become a teacher, that's when you really become a student.
Yeah.
And once you start teaching, you're going to continue to learn.
Yeah.
And you're going to learn from the people that you're teaching. I mean, I can't tell you how much I've learned from my students. I mean, there's no way to measure how much I've learned. And when you're teaching a group of people, you really learn how to manage a group.
Yeah.
But also it really teaches you how to own what you say.
Yeah.
Because now it's a group of people. And because if you're teaching a private, it's easy to be like, if you say something and you want to change it, you're like, oh wait, no, don't do that. Let's do this. But in a group setting, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you can still do that.
I've done up to like 10 people and a handful of times, and they're all beginners, and so it's been interesting, like, because I'll start to want to help one. Can I adjust you and help you, and I'll help them to push like just their knee to be more aligned. Mm-hmm. And then I look over and the other one's like trying to do that, but then their arm's coming over, almost touching the other. So then I want to get over to that one, and then I'm like, dude, I've had these people in a long pose. I better get out of this. Okay. And then I'm like, well, that person didn't get it. So really, like, the teaching of group is, I feel bad like that I can't help, even though I want it to be their practice, but I feel like that guidance, until people kind of have an idea, it's very hard because you want to help get that.
You verbalize it. So what you can do is when you see one person doing something, cue it verbally, because chances are several people in the room can benefit, if not everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you see
I've noticed
somebody,
that when you in classes, you'll say that, and I'm like, I was doing that.
Yeah.
Is he talking to me?
Yeah.
No, he's talking to 10 other people in this class.
Everybody can use it, and including the teacher.
Yeah.
Including the teacher, because chances are what I'm really seeing is something that is in my own practice as well.
Yep.
So that's why I'm recognizing it in somebody else's. So I highly suggest whenever you're ready, whenever you have that space, and I think it would be awesome for you to build a place in Puerto Rico, and I'll definitely come and visit. And
that's my
that's your current
dream.
That's
my current dream.
That's the current dream that you're going to go
winter
after.
Homes. We don't plan to be there all.
Winter in Puerto Rico, summer in Uzbekistan.
Yeah, we'll go there. We just want to go all over, and it's going to happen.
Tell me where your favorite wave is.
It's hard to say a favorite wave because I've had so many good sessions that sometimes it might not have been like the best wave, but it was just such a magical session.
Yeah, I get that.
I've had that at the Shores. I was just a buddy of mine who I have to make a board for. And he called me to make board, and he goes, I still think about that day. I'm like, dude, I was just thinking the same thing. That it was Thanksgiving, just such a perfect day. Then I think about how I've surfed waves like Tavarua, Cloudbreak. And it's such a flawless wave. This was when I was 16, and I have my surfing ability wasn't even near where it is now, or it should be, to surf the size and what it was then, to really take advantage of it. And it was with David Rostovich and Luke Egan and Benji Weatherly and these pros that are where you're like, that's how you surf, like these waves. And then I've been out at Pipeline seeing the most amazing waves, but not getting them because it's crowded. So it's hard, but I have gotten really good waves there. Maybe on some of the smaller days, or I've gotten in between waves on the bigger day. So it's hard to say where my favorite wave is. Mundaka, though, that wave is probably, I could say, one of my favorite waves, because the way it was a dream wave. I've wanted, you know, my whole life playing the Kelly Slater video game with a buddy, and we would say that we're going to go surf that wave one day, and I just happened to show up, and everything about it was so magical, plus the wave is just so flawless and perfect, and just this rifling perfect barrel. And so that is, you know, definitely one of my favorite waves. I've surfed the Super Bank before it was crazy crowded, like right when they pumped the first year when I was 18, and it was like phenomenal then. All those points over there are so good. But I can say also, as much as I don't really like surfing Venice anymore, and I haven't surfed it actually since I moved away, it gave me so much of a foundation of surfing that I had magical days out there that were back in the day when I swear it used to be better, and that were so perfect with just myself out. And so it's really just who you're with, the waves, the type, you know. Malibu, I've gotten, it's one of my favorite waves because it's just, I know a lot of people there, so I get a lot of waves when it's good too. Yeah. So Rincon, I had an amazing session the other day out there, and it wasn't even that good.
I can totally understand that. You know, when Venice, probably one of the cleanest barrels of my life was at Washington Pier.
Yeah.
I had just come back from Costa Rica. I was there for 11 days, surfed Santa Teresa like 3 times a day, and I was surfing really well. And it was an amazing trip, because I understand what you're saying, and it made me think of this, because it wasn't the best wave I've ever had, but it was one of the best trips I've ever gone on, because for some reason, nobody challenged me at the peak. I was at Santa Teresa, and I would just paddle to the peak, and I would get everything. I mean, I was literally catching like 50 waves a session, like so many waves, and I would surf 2 or 3 times a day. And I was there for 11 days, surfed 3 times a day, came home, landed from Costa Rica at night, and woke up the next morning, slept in a little bit, woke up the next morning, my neighbor was like, let's go catch some waves. I'm like, okay. He's like, I don't know what it's going to be like, but let's just go to Venice and check it out.
Yeah.
All right. We pull up Washington, and it's firing. It's like just overhead and perfect, and 2 guys out. And we're like, where are we? Is this the Twilight Zone?
That's like the weirdest, but that's how it happens in Venice, like when it used to do that.
And it was my first wave. I dropped in, and I didn't get barreled at all in Santa Teresa. Like it wasn't a barreling wave.
Yeah, more rippable.
Yeah, it was a very rippable wave and a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but no barrels. And I paddled out. Got my ass handed to me on the paddle out. I'll be honest. Like the paddle out was brutal. I didn't expect that. And I paddle out, and I catch my first wave, and it's a right, and I just drop in, and it just covers me. And it covers me for maybe, 2 seconds. But that 2 seconds was pure magic. And I came out, and I kicked out. And one of the 2 guys that was there was clearly a Venice local, older dude. He was like, this is what this kind of day is what we dream of. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it was magic. And, that spiritual moment that you were talking about earlier, that surfing carries, and I think it has a lot to do with what a wave actually is. Yeah. Because if you think about it, and I know you understand this completely, but a wave is cosmic energy. Yeah. It's created by the moon with the sun and the wind, which creates this wind and this swell from the ground, and it ends up traveling. So a swell is created, and it ends up traveling for thousands of miles across the ocean. Thousands of miles. Yeah. During the summertime, it's typically from Antarctica. Yeah. And from the wintertime, it's from Alaska, as you know. Mm-hmm. So these waves, these swells, travel for thousands and thousands of miles. And then they end when it hits that land shelf, and it crests and creates a wave. Yeah. And when you're on it, I mean, that's a spiritual moment.
For sure.
I mean, you are literally riding cosmic energy.
Totally.
And that's what, people have asked me, what's, because I've done lots of crazy, exciting, fun things. I've skydived and I've bungee jumped and I've done some stuff. And people ask me like, what's the most like awesome experience you've ever had? I'm like, hands down, getting barreled.
Yeah.
Hands down. Because when you get barreled, and I've only been barreled, I haven't been barreled nearly as much as you, but I've been barreled enough to experience living in that moment.
Well,
And you're completely surrounded by this.
You're basically like being, like people say reborn and all that stuff, religious, reborn and all. But when you're in like a womb. Yeah. And you come out, it's like.
And it's energy.
It's energy. You're in this energy. And it freezes almost. Timothy Leary has the whole saying, surfers are the most connected spiritually. I don't know how it all will butcher it all up, but basically you're staying in that moment. Mm-hmm. You're just in that time, in that moment. It rides, it's done, and that's it. But in that moment, there's so much going on,
and it goes so slow,
and it's so powerful. Like I heard another guy the other day goes, he's a Charger guy, and I randomly heard it, and what did he say? He's going, all these people ask me if I've tried ayahuasca and all this, and it changes your life and all that. He goes, I've been pinned on the bottom of a black sand in mainland Mexico on a 20-foot day, looking up with my eyes open, and you want to talk spiritually. I don't need to go drink some shit that I know that I'm going to come out of. That's some spiritual shit right there. Yeah. Just knowing, that if it fits your time, that's it. There's less,
I was talking about this last night, actually, in class. I talked about the intention was to breathe fully, because how we breathe is how we live. So in breathing fully, we're actually living fully. And I was talking about at the very beginning when I was setting the intention about how it, the breath is something that the body will do naturally, but it's also something that we have control over. And there is practical reasons for that, as well as profound reasons for that. The practical reasons are, when we're underwater, we're going to need to hold our breath. Profound reasons is because we breathe longer than we do anything else. We take it for granted. Yeah. So when we become present to it and really appreciate it and love it and get to know it, that's the profound step that you can take with your breath. But then I was talking about how if you've never, we take our breath for granted because it's just always there and just kind of does its own thing, and we don't have to ever think about it. And if we do, it's like, I need to slow my breathing down a little bit. Yeah. But if you've ever had a moment where you're not sure you're gonna get another breath, oh man, nothing becomes more important. I was just telling this story not that long ago because Megan and I took the motorcycle out for a really long ride, and we went up to the old place up on Mulholland, and there was a couple walking around and they were singing songs. The woman would play the guitar and sing, and the guy would just sing. And we were talking. He's like, yeah, and, he started talking about surfing, and I'm like, oh yeah, I surf. And he's going to Costa Rica for his first time, and we started talking about getting held under, and I was like, yeah, I got held up because the first time I went to Costa Rica, I went to Playa Hermosa outside of Jaco, biggest barrel of my life. Triple overhead, stand up.
I surf down there. It's heavy.
Put my arms up, it was magical moment barrel. And he's like, oh, aren't you afraid of getting held down? I was like, yeah, I've been held down 2 weekends in a row. I got held down where I didn't think I was going to come back up. And one of them was at Ocean Beach.
Oh, in San Francisco?
San Diego. Oh, okay, yeah. No, not San Francisco.
San Francisco.
That would have been gnarly too.
And then you're way out there too.
Oh yeah. No, I've surfed there.
Work there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, and it's freezing.
And freezing, sharky.
Freezing and sharky. And for some reason, cold water is harder. It's harder
it's heavier.
It's
like
heavier.
Getting hit by an ice cube.
And it's harder to hold your breath. Everything's harder. in cold water. But no, I was in Ocean Beach, San Diego, and it was 20-foot day, and I was in my 20s, and we were stupid. Like we paddled out because we thought it was a good idea. It was not a good idea at all. None of us. There was 3 of us. None of us caught waves. I almost died on the paddle out. So we're paddling out, and it's a beach break. So you're just duck diving, and it took me maybe like 40 minutes to make it to the lineup. And I get to the lineup, and my arms are just like cooked spaghetti. Yeah. And I look up, and a set's building, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. And I'm paddling. You know that feeling. I'm paddling as hard as I can.
You're like, do I turn in? Do I go?
Yeah. And I'm like, you gotta try. Like, right? Like you gotta try. So I'm like I'm going. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it. And, I try to explain this to people who don't surf because they don't really get it. Like 20 feet when you're standing up looks a lot different than 20 feet when you're on your belly.
Totally.
20 feet on your belly is a lot higher.
Yeah.
And this wave broke like right in front of me. I mean, it probably hit the nose of my board. That's how close it was. And I duck dove. I tried to hold on to my board because I knew like if I held on, like the board will float.
That doesn't always happen.
It didn't happen. It ripped it out of my hands. Right. And I think it hit me on the way out. And then I was just tumbling. And then just, okay, relax, just relax. And them relaxing, and I'm still tumbling. I have zero idea which way is up. And I'm sure this has happened to you, but it was the first time it's ever happened to me. My body went to inhale. Like my diaphragm dropped. Yeah, and I was like, holy shit. My body's trying to inhale right now. And I'm like, don't do that.
Those convulsions.
Oh man, that's when I got scared. I was like,
that's where the panic, or you just gotta just know that you're gonna come up.
Yeah, it did it again. So I was like, okay, don't inhale. It did it again. My diaphragm dropped. Right, I did that again, and I was like, oh my God, like this is it.
You could actually do that for a long time. I've found out.
Really? You found out the hard way. Well,
it starts getting quicker and quicker and quicker, and then. But yeah,
how many times before you pass out, or
that's still only one?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, so it did it twice on me, and then I found the surface.
And the next wave.
The next wave hit me right on the head. Like I took half a breath and wham, next wave hit me on the head, and I'm tumbling. It did it again. I called it the jerks. My body did the jerk again and twice, and luckily my leash didn't break.
Yeah, that's.
Dude, my leash saved my life, like hands down, because there was a third wave.
Yeah.
There was a third. And I held the board, climbed on, third wave hit. I was able to keep a hold of the board because I had been pushed in a little bit by that point. So I was able to hold onto the board, and it pushed me to the sand. I got out, and I was like, oh my God. I just laid there for maybe an hour. Like just totally done. That's a spiritual moment.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then it happened again the next weekend at Drain Pipes, Westward. We were there, and it was like 2 to 3 feet overhead and sweet, and then jacked up to double, like in a moment. And I got caught, and it pinned me hard.
Yeah.
Like it jackhammered me into the sand.
Isn't it crazy when you're like stuck on the sand without something like strapped?
Yeah.
And you're just...
And you couldn't move.
It's like poltergeist.
I could... Not only could
I... You can't move up. You can't even like move your arm. It's like you're stuck to the...
It was like an elephant was sitting on me. Because not only could I not move, the air was being pushed out of me.
Yeah.
And
it's like a cement blanket.
Yeah. I was like, holy
flattening,
shit.
Stretching out. Yeah.
I'm going to die.
I had that on my chest, and my board pinned me. I duck dove. It flipped me and pinned my board across. So then when I could move, when I was trying to push the board off, I'm pushing against the water. So I couldn't push it straight up.
Yeah.
Because I'm at the bottom. where I actually literally had to slide. This happened to me the other day too at Strand. I just remembered, but I had it in Portugal way gnarlier. You have to like slide it sideways down, like down your side of the body to get something to catch, so that it will take off.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I had that happen. I've had it happen a few times. Like
yeah, that's not fun.
No,
that's not fun at all.
But I've also had nothing on me and pinned, and I've had it where I've gone so deep where you feel your leash is like holding you.
Yeah.
I had a 10-foot leash, and it was so stretched down at the bottom. I remember I did like 3 strokes, and I'm like, I'm still not up. Mm-hmm. And I did like 2 more, and I started to feel that feeling, and then it rattled me back down again.
No shit.
Like another surge of energy from that same wave. And I'm like, oh shit. And I did like 2 more strokes, and I'm like, I'm not coming. This is crazy. And I was in Puerto Rico, and it's a smaller ocean, so intervals are much closer. So I was like, man, I better get up quick. The next one's probably coming out. And I got straight, and literally right as I got up, wham! But I made sure to get out my air and then get new, because that carbon buildup. Yeah. So and got like half just through real quick, and then went back down, and then came up. But being with the yoga and in shape, my recovery was good, because that's the biggest thing with I think when you're getting held down is how well you can recover for that next wave.
Yeah.
But that was probably it was a really big day, and same kind of thing. I think I paddled for the first wave and missed it, and then turned around. So I let go all my energy trying to catch this wave, and then to turn around, and it was like,
that's like,
oh my god,
that's the worst. That's the worst, because you missed the wave, you used all of your energy, and now you're on the inside. I've been caught in that scenario more times than I want to admit to you. Like that is the worst. It's the worst, because if you would have caught the wave,
then you'd been fine.
And you know it.
You're like, yeah.
But you missed it, and then the second wave is just like about to pound you.
I had one in Mexico, and it was bombing. I had just off the plane, like the night before I got in, and it was like I had like a 9-hour layover in Mexico City or something. So I started drinking Bloody Marys and stuff. This is like 10 years. And I was like hungover. My friend's like, I gotta take my kids to school. Just grab your 7-0 or something. And I'm like, it's that big out there? It doesn't look that big. No one was out yet. And I run out, and I'm like, oh, it's pretty solid. And then I paddled out, like kind of down the way where it's smaller and you can get out pretty easy. Mm-hmm. Get out easy. And then I realized, I'm like, dude, that guy's on a huge board and like a paddle vest, like has a impact of inflation. And I'm like, wow, it's pretty big. He's on like a 9-something, I think. And then there was like Jamie O'Brien was stepping off on the jet ski. And then the other guy, Brian Conley, who was the local guy down there. And this perfect one comes right to me. I'm like not even out there for more than 5 minutes. And I'm like, sick. Dropped in. Boom. Perfect barrel. Come flying out. Kick out. No problem. Here's 2 more. I'm just watching 2 perfect ones. You want to talk about that's probably my favorite place to go, because it's just, I like big beach breaks and stuff. You just know it's easier. Mexico's so close, and I just love Mexico. I like it there. I like the Latin feel of places. Yeah. So I paddle back out, and I'm just watching these 2 perfect ones, and I'm like, what the hell? This is perfect. And then I see another one. I'm like, oh shit, now I know why they're on bombing big boards, some Solomon. And my buddy comes over on the ski. Hey, where's Swartz, my buddy who lives there? And I'm like, oh, he's taking his kids to school. He's gonna be out. He goes, oh, you want to step off on a couple? And I'm like, yeah, I never stepped off before, and I'm on like a 7-0, usually they're smaller. So he goes, okay, well, just hold your leash, don't let it get caught and when I say go. So I'm like, okay, I'm out. He's like, you're just gonna stand on the side, and then when I say jump, so boom, I'm on, and he's just flying halfway down the beach, like quarter mile. And I'm like, where are we going? And then he like whips around, and he comes to this section, and he's like, go. So I'm like, okay, and I jump off, and the wave hasn't even like jacked up yet. And I'm like, okay, I think I know what I'm doing. Stand up, and I'm like so in it so early, and it's like, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's jacking up. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna backdoor this one so much, and I just fade like way behind, and then turn, and I'm like trying to get this 7-0 now going because I'm like went maybe a little too far, and I was in it so early, and the thing just jacks, and I'm so deep in this barrel where when you're in big like hollow barrels like that. You know, you always see the spit come out, but before that spit, it sucks in so gnarly like at you that like you feel your face like being pulled, like it's like this suction, and you go like weightless. Like that's the real like in the moment feeling where you're like, what did I just went into the vortex? Like, but it's such a cool, and then it just went. And spit so hard that it felt like a truck hit me because I was so deep that the foam ball like hit, and I went and it hit underneath me. I went over the fall and I remember flipping, doing a full cartwheel into the barrel. Like before I even went, it landed. It was just like a flip. I flipped in the barrel completely. Like it was such a big barrel. Landed and then got sucked back over again in the actual wave going over the falls. Drilled. And I got like super drilled, and it's warm, so you're like kind of fatigued. This is all I just got a wave. I'm paddling back and forth. I'm like adrenaline's just flowing, and I pop up, and I'm like, and I'm trying to pull my board to me, and my board's broke. So I have like it's like together still kind of, and I'm pulling the tail, and I turn around and. I'm in one of those, like down in Mexico and Puerto Escondido, they have these like rips that are super gnarly where they don't pull you out to sea and they don't pull you in. They just pull you right into the impact zone and you just stay there. So the next one comes and literally like it's right on my head. And I'm just bail the board again. Wham! And I go under. And I come up and I'm going to do the same thing. The next one's right there. I'm grabbing my leash and I'm just letting like, here's the third one. Here's the fourth one. And I'm watching my buddy drop in on one, and he actually, I think he got a shot in Surfer, the cover or something. There was some shots in there of some of the waves that day, and I was just like, this is crazy. I'm like, if there's another wave, I'm coming on like 8, and I'm like, and I was just in trunks, so normally they'll have vests, but since I was already surfing out there, and I was just like, wow, like. If another wave's after this one, I'm thinking as I'm bailing and going under, I'm like, I'm in serious, like, I'm starting to get pretty fatigued.
Yeah.
And I pop up and there's like another one and I'm like, I'm just going to hold on to the tail of this board and just try to stay afloat because every time it would hit me, I was trying to let it hit me to drag me in, but it would just send me down and back up because ideally you want to fall and get washed in as far as you can. Yeah. So then you're not in that put. But these rip were just pulling me. And I'm hold on and I get like just enough in and the set finally dies and I'm like, what the hell? Like, and then here comes my buddy, one of the other guys on the skis because there's a few skis. Hey, are you all right? I'm like, God, that was some serious pearly gate shit I had to go through.
Yeah. Wow.
Like it was like crazy because it was just like, and I'm like, what? Like, don't you usually wait? And then my buddy Brian, who dropped me off, he goes, "How was that one? It was sick, huh?" And I'm like, "Dude, I got so lit." He goes, "Oh, I thought you made it." So I just went over to go grab the next guy.
That's man. Did you go get a new board and surf some more? Or were you done for the day?
I think the wind was starting because it started to come up a little early. And so I was done. But then I think... No, I was done then. I was like just off the plane, fatigued. And after that, I was like, I'm going to go. And then, because it was like kind of not really that good. Like no one was really getting waves. And then the one guy I ended up seeing later, he was paddling with the vest. Mm-hmm. He ended up taking one and got drowning down the beach and thought he was going to die. He said he's never been so close because I was like, geez, no wonder why. Like, but I was just off the plane. I was like, whatever. Normal. Yeah. I mean, I've surfed it some bigger days now, but it's crazy. Those beach breaks in Mexico are no joke.
Yeah. No, that happened to me. You know? That happened to me once in Uluwatu.
Yeah.
So I flew into Bali and I love Uluwatu. It's a big, heavy, hollow, fun wave. When it's like, head high, it's magic. And I show up, and it looks about maybe a little overhead, and it's glass off. The sun's about to set. It looks wonderful out there. Nobody's out. Not a single person. I'm like, what are people thinking?
Yeah.
That looks amazing. I'm fresh off the plane. Right? On the plane, traveling for 27 hours.
Yeah.
And I wax my board, and I run down there, and I paddle out, and I get out there, and I realize, I'm like, oh, now I know why nobody else is out. This is sketchy. This is sketchy. It's low, tide's dropping. The reef in Uluwatu is probably the scariest reef I've ever surfed over.
Really?
Yeah, even scarier than Tahiti, because it's super jagged. I mean, Tahiti's sharp and it's alive, and you can see it, and you can see the bubbles, and it breaches the ocean, the ocean layer. But the Uluwatu's reef, it's all over the place. Like, you can see it. You're walking over it. You're paddling over it. You can see it. It's like the teeth on it are like this big. Crazy. And the tide was dropping. The wave was shifting. It wasn't coming in at the right place at the right time. And it was like double overhead. And I was sitting out there, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it in. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do right now. And so
that's not a good feeling.
It's not a good feeling. And I was alone. I was alone. There was not a single person out in the water. And I'm like, oh, I'm the dumbass out here right now that everybody on shore right now is making fun of. I'm like, okay, great. Let me just get to shore. And I was able to, obviously I made it, but those moments, man.
Oh.
Those moments.
I got a funny one, actually. It just reminded me of the getting in. It wasn't as scary for me when we were in Morocco. Speaking of one of my favorite ways,
I've always wanted to surf.
That place is just a land of just crazy right points everywhere. And there's this one wave that's just like out of Tagazu, just up the way, and it gets bigger and like kind of way out on the peak. There's lots of wind out there, and I rush up. I'm with two buddies and Regina. We just got there. My buddy's like, let's go up here. You got to rent a car? Let's go up here. Let's go check these spots. It could be good. I've scored it like big. And so we're like, okay, let's go up there. Because I was like, I want to away from this crowded like point, a couple of the points in there. And so we go up there. And we're looking. I'm like, dude, it looks perfect. It's like just these rifling rights that are like 3 times as long as the Rincon. Like, literally the longest wave I've ever got there. And I'll show you some photos I got on my phone of just like blank waves that I shot after. And it's like probably 45 minutes, an hour left of light. And we're like, let's just run out. And like, you have to go down this crazy cliff and how to get out. And I'm like, oh, it should be fine, I'm on like a 6.0. My buddy has like a 6.3, another one. And he was like, yeah. He goes, I think it's pretty solid out there. Like, this is the biggest I've seen it. And I'm like, oh, okay. But it still didn't look that big, but it looked solid. And we jump in, and the second I jumped into the water, I was just getting dragged down. And I'm like, this is way bigger out there. Because if there's this much current moving, when I look back in, I'm like, where we parked and we walked way up, I'm like, I'm already passing it. So it took about 30 minutes to like get to a point where we could get outside and start paddling back out. And as we're paddling back out, there was like kind of a lull then. So we're like, okay, sweet. I think we're pretty much shut out there. And I sit on my board, and my buddy is just like, I'm on the smallest board. So I sat just a little bit inside so I could catch it easier. And all of a sudden, I could see like over this one wave, like a little bit of a lip on a wave that was behind the next one. And I'm like, fuck, we're okay. And I saw, and as he like went over, I saw the like jump to the, like go from sitting to straight paddle position, and both, and then my next friend, and then both just start going this way. I'm like, oh, this is gonna really suck for me.
Yeah.
And I got a thin leash, so I'm not gonna let go of my board. And I come over the one and I'm like, oh my God. And it was like solid, probably 20-foot face or something.
Wow.
And just like way, like, it was already breaking by the time I was there. So I'm like, this really sucks.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way I'm even paddling hard. So I just kind of coasted to it. Duck dove and did about like 4 somersaults with my board. Pop up. There's another one. And now I'm so far down. I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to paddle back out. So I'm going to just try to get my way to over until these sets come, because I got to get a wave at least.
Yeah.
And now it's almost dark. and I don't have glasses, so my like eyes are like pretty, I mean, I wear glasses, so when I don't have them, it's like, it's just blur. I can see like things, but it's not like ideal of like, especially that sunset time. Everything just becomes like kind of weird. And this one pops up. I'm like, it's like still like a double overhead wave. And it's like an middle one. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go because this thing's just popping up to me and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So I just go and I ride it for so long. My legs start burning, but I'm like, now I have no clue where to go in. It's just like cliff, like straight up and down cliff too. Not like, you know, boulders, like when you're going around Magoo, but it's basically like that. It's like connecting. If you connect like Point Magoo all the way to like Sycamore, like that's how long these waves are. Like, God. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And I'm like looking out, like on the top of the wave, and I just see line and just perfect waves with no one on them. And I'm like, dude, my friends aren't even on them. Where are they? And I'm like, damn, I got to figure out where I'm coming in. And I'm like looking as I'm riding this wave, I'm scoping out. And then I see this big boulder like coming up, like a big rock kind of closer to the cliff. And I'm like, well, if I get close to that on the other side of it, at least it will stop the waves from pounding me into it. And maybe I can climb up somewhere on there.
Yeah.
So I go in and I'm like literally paddling behind this rock as it keeps breaking around me now. And I'm duck diving, that I did find a place, but I had to make sure that from there I could get to that one rock to pull myself up. And now it's like dark. It's like pretty, like there's no more sun, nothing. And I let the board go and I just climb up and then pulled it by the leash. And I'm now like looking and I'm like, this is just pitch black. Like, and there's camels like stuck, and like, right? Like I'm kind of stuck, but I found like, I was just like, I gotta figure out ways to climb up. And it was like a canyon kind of, so it was getting like narrower. So I kind of did the like little kid in the doorway kind of foot, to get myself up. And it was like 10 feet. And then there was like another one that was like to like a little higher. But the cliffs was probably like from the bottom to the top was probably like 40 feet.
Wow.
Maybe. Yeah.
And you got your board just dangling off your ankle?
No, I grabbed it now and I was kind of using it as like a wedge on the thing. No, I did let it go a couple times because I was like, it's on my ankle, whatever. I don't care if it gets dinged. And I get to the top and there's some like locals like barbecuing or something. And they're just Berbers, like full like, you know.
Wow.
And I'm like, how am I gonna get over? And there's like there's camels with them and stuff. It's like super surreal. Like you get out, and I end up going, well, I'm gonna run up the highway because I got to get back to them, and in case they're coming looking for me. So I'm running up the highway, and I see like a little fire going. So I'm like, oh, maybe they started fire, and then that was more locals doing something. So I was like. And there's gnarly trucks coming around this little highway. So I'm like, I'm off this path. And I'm like trying to walk through. It's pitch black through cactuses.
And you can't see very well.
I can't see very well.
Are you wearing a wetsuit?
I'm wearing my wetsuit, yeah. Oh. And I just keep going. And I can hear them now talking at the car. And the car lights go on. And I'm like, start laughing. Hey! And I'm yelling. And then they're like, there he is. There he is. So I end up getting there. And Regina was like crying. Like she does, just because she didn't really understand then. This This was like years ago, and like my friends were like, "No, he's fine. He's surfed big waves before. He's like surf professional. Like, don't worry." Even though they were kind of like tripping, like, "Where the fuck did he go? Did he like hit his head or something?" And she was just like, "He can't see." That's what she was saying. His eyes are bad without his glasses at night. Like, I don't know where. Like, all right, where? What did you do? And how did they get in? So I find out they paddled in. Like, they just got pushed in from those sets, and they went behind the rock that we initially jumped out. They somehow got over there.
So they didn't even try to catch a wave.
They didn't even. My one friend ate it on one, and then like airdropped. I watched him do that on one right when we first got out, and then he paddled back out, and then and then the other one didn't get a wave. And so she was just like, still to this day, she's like, that was the best sleep of my life. Like that night, holding you, sleeping was like, I let go so much emotion, like not knowing what happened. Because it was probably like 30 minutes me trying to get up and walk back.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine how scary that would
be. Yeah. So it was like.
In Morocco.
Yeah. Like, how are we going to find him?
Yeah. You're not speaking the language. Oh man, in your wetsuit. I mean, luckily you had a wetsuit on for the climb.
Yeah,
because I'm sure like that would keep your skin from getting too scratched up. But not very good for those big trucks coming around the corner on that little highway. No. They can't see you.
No, it was crazy.
Hopefully they have their glasses on.
And even then, those crazy drivers.
Wow, that's nuts. I mean, I think we could. I could listen to your surf stories all day long, dude. But I want to talk about your jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Because I've practiced jiu-jitsu maybe a handful of times, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I had a friend, actually, the guy who I did my very first teacher training with, Tamal Dodge. He was practicing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he would invite me over to his house, and we'd roll around on the mats. Because I always wanted to practice it, but I didn't want to go to a gym. Or do you call them gyms?
Yeah, academies.
Academies.
Gym, yeah.
I didn't want to go to an academy because I use my body so much for work, and I can't get injured.
Yeah.
Like I can't. Like if I get injured, that affects my work.
For sure.
So I never wanted to go to an academy, but I always wanted to practice. So I started practicing with Tamal until we both kind of just got busy with life. Yeah. But I practiced with him like 5 times, maybe 10 times. I loved it.
Yeah, it's really cool.
How do you feel the yoga helps you with your jiu-jitsu?
Oh, tons.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think they all go hand in hand because the body awareness in surfing, jiu-jitsu, and yoga is so key. You know, of how far you can push things like paddling, getting up, pulling into barrels, asanas, where you can position yourself. So, and also just, I think it helps with staying flexible, the mobility and everything that's there, the strength of being able to hold yourself in uncomfortable positions. That's really like a lot of jiu-jitsu is you really are just getting yourself to be comfortable in an uncomfortable position until you get out and position yourself like a chess match into a position where then you can get that person. So with yoga, I feel like your mind, your breathing, it's just more fast, paced, obviously. So, but when you're doing moves, you're moving with your breath. Like I do a lot of different breathing when I'm training, and I've been training now since I think 2005, long time, and I was off and on, some injury stops, and life happens, but pretty consistent, and so. I feel like once I started, especially later now, I feel like with how my practice for yoga has become such a spiritual connecting and that, it's also allowed my jiu-jitsu to become more that way, where there's a lot of competitive guys and real strong, and I'm not very big. I'm like 140, 145, 5'6", and there's guys who are 200 pounds, but understanding my body and where to just position myself who want to like just try to manhandle me, I know that I can sit in those positions, but I still have that real quick dynamic strength when I need it, and positioning and flexibility, and the body awareness of knowing how far I can push. A lot of injuries do come if you are too flexible. Like, you can put yourself almost in a bad position because it's just gonna keep going. You know, I feel like that's where I don't like the too long of practice before, where I'm super stretched out my muscles, and to where I feel like then they're kind of fatigued by the time I go to jiu-jitsu or elastic. So I found myself, I injured myself one time and I'm like, oh, I think it was because I did too long of a practice today. I'm going to start dying that out. Or maybe not that I did too long of a practice that day, but too long of a practice within a certain amount of period that my body hadn't rehabbed, regrouped back together. So I find now where I do like a more, I do all the asanas, but I kind of just flow through them with like 1 to 3 breaths, depending on where I feel, just to get it going and get it like my body like movement. Yeah. And then go to jiu-jitsu. And then after jiu-jitsu, I do some asanas, not a practice, but I just stretch and just do a few. And then like, we'll see maybe how I feel tonight. I might do a good practice in meditation. I already did a little meditation breath before, but I tend to like sometimes doing like a restorative later because you're tense, and even like rolling with a ball and like breathing and then having like a meditation after, and it really brings back that body awareness of all that it went through the day. Yeah. To recoup and just recover. That recovery is so huge. Where I feel before I would train and it was like, well, I'll just go harder. I'll train harder. I'm going to train through this. Now I kind of know where my body is. And I think since I've been doing it so long, I understand like maybe today I'm going to just roll this way, or I'm going to roll like that. It's also choosing your partners, your training partners, because there's some that are way too aggressive. I'll just be like, I don't feel like rolling with him. Yeah. Because it's going to get intense. And it's not that I don't think I can hang. I've just allowed my ego to go, you know what, I don't need to do that. Like I have gotten kind of intense with a few people where they go and they push too hard. They do something kind of, very just not smart, like crunching up it's trying to stack you, which is called when you're underneath, and being smaller, I'm usually the guy on the bottom. And I would be more on my neck to try to get you to release. And then you do something back because you're going, well, it's either my neck or their arm. So, and it just is not a good feeling. Ideally, like, it's a self-defense. So the best self-defense is to get away. Yeah. So ideally I know that I can just defend myself the majority of the time. Yeah. So I feel like having that flexibility, that body, awareness has really helped a lot with now getting older too. I'm 38 now, so I think a lot of people at my age are broke off doing jiu-jitsu. Like they can't. Everything's been messed up. I mean, I have fingers and toes that get messed up from it, and I have like a little thing on my neck that comes and goes. But I feel like, just like, to be honest, like if you just sit, I'll sit in like chair pose against the wall and like praying, dropping the shoulders, and I'll feel my spine just go right back into place now. Like I can get it. And I know exactly where, like my psoas is so tight back here with my hip. I'm like, I know it's going to be, after driving home, it's going to be all inflamed. So that's where I'll just do a restorative and roll. I'll do like a little flow, like just Surya Namaskar, A, B, couple like warrior, just to get it open. Yeah. And then do a couple like, forward bends, and then I just roll on a ball, and then it's usually like my body's fine, feels great, and I'll go to bed. I'm like, wow, that was awesome.
You said a couple of cool things in that just now that I like. That you said, first of all, that the yoga practice helps you by maintaining like this calm while in an uncomfortable position. Yeah. Right. Because I mean. Definitely, if you practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're gonna find yourself in lots of uncomfortable positions. Yeah, and
especially smaller. Being small, so
or not as skilled like me. Yeah. So being able to keep your calm probably helps you not get injured quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because when you start to freak out is when you tense up. And when you tense is when you can get hurt. And then you also said that you actually find that sometimes your flexibility works against you. I never even thought of that. Yeah. How sometimes you can be so flexible that you allow your body to get to a place because it's not uncomfortable yet, that you may get to a place that you can't recover from.
Yeah. Or your strength doesn't, you can't. This guy had me actually my leg today, and I wasn't in a bad place, but I knew that it was only making it to where I could sit there all day, but if I move, I don't have the strength to now counter it because I allowed it to get past a point.
Yeah.
So now I had to adjust my whole body, but I knew where to adjust because I knew I can't turn my knee this way.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to show me to do something today. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's not how I do it. I don't care if you do it, because if I drop my knee, when they go to flex out, my knee hurts too much. And I'm like, that's my game, just like my practice. And I'm missing fingers on one hand. I'm smaller. There's a lot of things that, just like you're in yoga, you have to, if you have longer one leg, you're not going to have the same practice as someone else.
Yeah.
But everyone's different. So I've adapted to make my own game in jiu-jitsu, as same as my own practice. So when I'm training, there's certain grips I can't do that grip, or I can't do this. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to practice it so I can be aware of how to avoid someone else doing it to me. Because it's always good to learn, but I'm not going to say only that way, and I'm also going to explain why I'm not going to do that, so it doesn't seem like I'm going against something,
Yeah.
So, and because I'm not, that's how injuries happen. One of the times I did my knee was exactly like that. I was flexing and I'm like, oh, my knee feels okay, but I'm like, I think I could sweep them still from here. And just my neglecting my body aware. I was aware, but neglecting that there's the difference of uncomfortable and being injured, something that's hurting and injured.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where I learned, and then the other knee injuries were kind of my mistake. One, I slipped stepping in a patch of sweat. Another time I was moving off the guy and he's 200 pounds and sat on my ankle and it popped. So there's things that happen and a lot of more accidents.
Yeah.
But then I go, when I'm surfing every day, I had injuries, or my back was scorpioning myself surfing and then getting stacked on my neck in jiu-jitsu. That hurt, but I kind of was allowing myself to get there, being a little too cocky of like, oh, well, put me here. You're still not going to get me. Yeah. You start realizing like a lot of the stuff is just, there's a system to go by, and it's all based on frames and body awareness. And no matter how big, like we were saying about the ocean being pinned down on us, and you're uncomfortable, that you are going to float to the surface, and you just need to create like that, relaxing moment and slowly let it get up. Well, when someone's pinning you on top, you have frames, just like we frame ourselves to stand in yoga. You can't do a handstand if your arms are not straight up and down. So you're doing the same thing in jiu-jitsu to create that frame to make you comfortable. Yeah. And a body is all this mush. So it's basically like a bed frame. You could put any size mattress on top of any size bed frame. That frame is going to hold that little area wherever it is. So you just are making that frame to make it so you can breathe or whatever. So once you start learning those things, it's very easy to go, well, okay, now I'm in a bad position. And it goes, and there's also tap fast and tap off often. And you only learn by tapping, because you go, well, am I training to see how tough I am, or am I training to learn what not to do? Yeah. Oh, I put myself in an arm bar. Tap. Because if that was street, I don't do tournaments. Not that, like before I didn't, because I had ego and I didn't want to, when I was competing and stuff, I didn't want to hurt myself and then not be able to compete surfing. And then now it's more of I enjoy the practice, because there's a difference in a lot of the competitive people I train with still. They're very just aggressive, and it's not as flowing of a technique. And when you're going into those matches, you're much more of that like torquing, and you're trying to really get that person. And I don't want to have that, like, I can't go 100% if I don't really like fighting. If I feel like there's something at risk or I need to do it in that sense, I can't go 100%. I can go 100% like rolling with a buddy, but if I don't know you, it's hard for me to go 100% because I'm just like, what am I going with? Because I know my buddy's game, so I know he's not going to hurt me. We can push 100%.
Yeah.
You know, one of my training partners.
Yeah.
But when they're in a match, I don't know, but I can't really I don't want to hurt them.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, oh, if I tweak their arm, and I don't want to, I know my area, but I know also, like, I'm not going to want to tap if I'm in a bad position. I want to win. Yeah. You know, kind of like, that's what my mentality is, and I'm going to go fight to the end. So it's like, yeah, you might get me in a foot lock, but I'm not going to tap. If I was in the street, I'm going to be punching you in the head. Like, there's a lot of positions that have some positions that people don't have the awareness of. They're going to get in big trouble there, you know? So, but not that I enjoy training with a lot of the competition guys because it's fun. It keeps you on your toes and everything's ignited. But I'd just say I tap way more now than I used to because I'm like, whatever. I want to keep it going too, than just being stuck in some positions, you know, because you can sit there forever in some positions too.
Do you ever find that when you tap, people hold for a little longer or do it a little stronger? Does that happen? Some
can, but that's why they say tap fast and tap often, because usually what that is it's like it's the lower belts, like blue, and usually by purple they're pretty good with knowing how to, you know, grab. And then slowly, like I do a thing I call grab and release. So I'll just put them into the position and I'll sync it. And if I don't have it exactly perfect where it's immediately on, I let go real quick. And then, or I put it into position also because it keeps the roll going. So you don't stop and reset. So you get that whole 5 minute or 6 minute, 7 minute roll, whatever the time is, and you don't stop. So you're really gassed by the end. You know, you just keep that flow because it's really a flow. It's like, it's like chess. I move here, you move there. And then you could have like super flowy moves with your friends. Like when you're injured, you go one move, then they go one move. You go one move. Like, where would you go? How would you avoid? There's just, it's endless of like, it's really just fun. I've found it because I've been doing it for so long, it's like you start, and now with the spiritual yoga and all, and surfing, like, you know, it's like surfing, you have to relax, and that body awareness and movement of like being overly flexible, they're all the same, connected, you know? And so now it's almost like you see those samurais why they do certain things. And you're like, I could do practice forever because I'm doing it for a different way than to just burn out my body in this aggression with, you know, I'm doing it for the joy and for useful stuff later on if I need or whatever.
You know what I like is that what you just said, it kind of goes along with everything in how you do your things. So your three things are surfing, jiu-jitsu, and yoga. And in all of those three things, you have found your way.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Like, each one of those you've gone through so much with that you have found what works for you.
Yeah.
And I found that you did that with your surfing, right? You did the pro thing. You were a kid, loved it, did the pro thing, really competed, started to get burned out, and then you got burned out and totally walked away and then found the love again. It happened with your yoga too. You had yoga. It was just to kind of refine, kind of like fine tune things to help you with your surfing.
Yeah.
and then you went away from it, and then you rediscovered it when you rediscovered your surfing and your love for surfing. And then you went through that whole journey of finding your practice. And that looked like you practiced with a couple of other people. You practiced with me at Patagonia, and then with me at Yoga Works. Then you did your home practice on your own, which, by the way, you created a lifestyle for yourself in Peniche that I had for myself in Brazil and in Floripa, in Florianopolis, right above Praia Mole. I was there in a house, and I had the same thing. Like, I wake up, meditate, check the surf, I drink coffee, go catch waves, come back, write, and practice yoga. And like, I loved that lifestyle. That I kind of like have formed that lifestyle here for myself. Yeah. So that lifestyle that you had in Peniche, I know exactly what you were experiencing. But then you came back and then did the teacher training. And then that totally sent you off on this other whole other path.
Super deep into like studying like all kinds of yoga teachers and swamis and all kinds of stuff too. And like, really, I like to go super into things. Yeah. Like crazy.
Yeah, me too. And and now you've found your place within your practice, that you feel that you have the confidence to share your unique voice with people when it's time. Yeah. And then it sounds like you did the very same thing with your jiu-jitsu. You know, you had it at first, you know, when you were 19, 20, you were young, ego, you know, not tapping, beating yourself up or letting yourself get beat up. And the weird
thing is, like, I was actually like, then it was like I was doing it so many times a day that I was just progressing fast. So that I wasn't seeing the side of me, like, it wasn't like I was getting injured or things. I was just on this just trajectory of just going, that I was just learning. I was teaching the kids class. I was just like, so it was such a journey, but like almost just too hard that once like I did get a little injury or I stopped, it was like, whoa, this is like, it's really easy to just stop because I was going so hard, you know?
No, it's really cool to see. I like how you do that because I'm the same way. And it's all about finding your expression authentically within what you like to do. Yeah. And for me, my three things, at least they were surfing, traveling, and yoga. Those were my three things. I love to travel, I love to surf, and I love to practice. And I have found my own way in all of those as well. I mean, traveling is a little bit different, and I think I need to re-examine that list. I actually think what makes the list now is family. I mean, I love my family and my daughter and my wife, and you know, like really, you know, exploring my own personal love and expression within those relationships. But it's really cool to see how you have taken your three favorite things and made them not only your own, but created this life for yourself that is so unique, man. Yeah. Like, and it's so special and so cool and sounds so exhilarating. Yeah. And, you know, I always love it when we hang out, but like now, like this is like, we get to really dive into this.
For sure.
And it's been super cool, dude. Yeah. And, I can't wait to try that new surfboard that you gave me. Yeah. That's going to be a fun one, and I'm going to include in this podcast. Maybe I'll do that right now. So you made me my last two boards that I only ride. I mean, I've got a few other boards, but I don't ride them. Yeah. And I ride the two that you gave me religiously. Those are my two. And I found the footage, and I'm going to add that into this podcast right here, of when you gave me those boards and Sequoia was a baby.
That's so cool.
And we're at my old apartment, and you called me and I walked down.
That's right.
And you bought the surfboard the board bag for me too. Yep. And then you showed me the two new boards.
Yeah, because you were leaving like the next day, I think.
I think so. Yeah. I think where was it? Was I going to
You were
Tahiti?
doing Tahiti, then Indo.
Oh, that's right. I did Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia,
and
Tahiti.
then Tahiti. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I got to. I mean, obviously I didn't get to surf in all those places, but I got to surf in Indonesia. I didn't surf in Australia; it just didn't work out for me. I was in Sydney, and then I surfed in Tahiti. That's right. So you gave me those boards right before that trip, and I found the footage. So I'm going to show some of that right now.
That's epic.
And then the board you just gave me.
You can let me know about those if you see like otherwise. These are pretty close.
No, I'm down. I'll take two of them.
So it's either like the blue or black, or there's the blue or the red. Black or the red.
Well, let's see.
The red could be good on that one. And some more tail rocker too, so that way when you're late, you can really step on the tail and get to the bottom turn quick. And then that's why also normally you don't like to do quad and thrusters, but on a step up it's okay because you kind of you can use it for barrels, or it's not your as performance as you're gonna get like a short board where it's for specific. So that's with quads, I leave the tail a little bit wider, and then right behind that is when I can allow it, because otherwise if they're too close it gets too clustered on one track more. But yeah,
no, it looks awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the board that I take to Tahiti. Do you still shape for other people, or is it just for friends these days?
No, I mean I just keep it on a custom board thing. I like to everything. Like I like to do the private yoga lessons, and I like to be more personal.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everything is energy, and it's whatever comes into me that I feel. So if I don't want to put a bunch of boards in a rack that just, I feel like that it will just lose life and my energy if they just sit there.
Yeah.
And then they go to the waste, and it's just mass producing more stuff that we have so much of. So because boards are so toxic anyways, I try to just keep it onto whatever it is that I can shape for that specific person or that specific wave. I've been tinkering with some ideas too, where like I want to do like boards where I give, any board that someone buys, I'll put, 50% of the board to any charity they would like, doing things that are more meaningful through making the boards, because I love doing it. I don't need mass produced stuff. I like to do other things as well. But I try to just have programs going where I can, set up things, because I love it, because everything from the painting I love to do with the paint for the people is because that's more of like an emotional connection through the painting, and then the shape of a board is more like, it's more of that physics. It's like it has to work and it has to be more technical. Yeah. So I like having both sides of that, to go through my board. So the more I can do with making boards specifically for the person, customs, it just has much more of a flow for me, and that I can, otherwise I'm just feel like I'm working. Yeah. When you're just doing board after board after board after board, it just gets overwhelming. You lose that inspiration and fascination about what you're doing. Yeah. And I think that's like why with everything I do, it's about being constantly like true survival is not like food and all of these things. It's what keeps your spirit alive. So inspiration and motivates you. That's survival. So whether it's traveling, whether it's surfing, whether it's yoga, whatever it is, it's keeping you wanting to feed yourself, wanting to keep all these things. So that's why with you, with family, you're fascinated by them and inspired. So that's what's keeping it going, to do more things like podcasts and things. And that's where I feel like with me, as long as I'm fascinated and because you could be passionate about so many things, but if you're not really inspired by it and fascinated and just having that motivation to keep excelling there, then you become stagnant.
That's really cool. I think that's a really important thing for people to get and understand and learn from you, is the importance of inspiration. Yeah. Because it's true. I mean, I bet you could mass produce surfboards. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if you contacted a big brand, or
you just get an investor and you turn it into a business, and you could do that. And that's the thing I don't get inspired by that. I love to have one guy on tour and just make boards to try to really like fine tune a board that work perfectly throughout. Of course, but that's because that's inspiring. That's like something that I'm fascinated, how to make a board work better and really getting in tune with someone. Yeah, but like to just make a bunch of boards to be just pretty on a rack to sit there and maybe sell.
What I love to hear, dude, is that you're not willing to sacrifice your inspiration and your passion for money. I mean, not just like money, but like making lots of it. Like you're not willing to sacrifice. Like you're not willing to sacrifice, why you shape boards, how you shape boards, what you paint on them. Just like you weren't willing to sacrifice like how you surfed. You're not willing to sacrifice how you roll in jiu-jitsu. You're not willing to sacrifice how you practice yoga. I love that, dude. Like you aren't willing to sacrifice those things because that's what makes you and what's important to you. And I think that's important for people to like know. And that's why I think that's probably going to be one of the more valuable points of this whole conversation, is not allowing anything to take you out of what inspires you. And not settling for anything, because I'm the same way. Like I don't settle for anything. I want it to be a certain way, and if it's not that way, I don't care. Like it's going to be how I want it, or I'm not going to do it.
That's it.
Yeah, because I need to feel good while doing it. And if I don't feel good while doing it, I'm going to go do something else.
I had a guy who I did boards for, and I just didn't feel right. Because I was like, it's not a fit, I don't care how many Instagram followers and that. And I did it with a friend, and it just was like the original one, magic, because it was what I wanted to do. And then the route and how I felt about making these boards for someone and I have no problem with someone doing what they do. But to make a fit, it just has to work. Like why are you getting these? For what reason? What do you want out of it? And if you're coming to me to change what I do and make it your way, then it's not a fit. It goes both ways. And I'm about constantly, life's a practice, living's a practice, and we have these things. And as they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Well, because you're constantly in that journey for inspiration and, your destiny. But if you stay in a destination, it becomes stagnant because there's not that moving energy. It's just like your body, if you're not moving it around. So you got to constantly, you have finding something where, like I said, I heard someone say that about being fascinated by something. And when you're fascinated, you'll stay wanting to do it, so you'll find new ways to go. You'll find new journeys. You'll find new waves when you want to explore. If you really love surfing, you're going to go find a new wave. Yeah. You're going to get a buddy. You're going to throw, your board in the car. Who's coming with me? I'm going to look for some waves. Yeah. When you're feeling that way. But when you don't have that, and it's the same as, in a relationship. If you don't have that connection with your partner, and that fascination where you just love to talk with them and do these things and everything they say, and they inspire you, then you can have love or be passionate. But if you're never together and never working and making this, then it's that build of that life. Yeah, because life is moving. It's moving. It's always moving. Yeah. And that's why I like the
it's about the journey and not the destination, because once you have a destination, there's no more movement.
No more.
Like you see those people, and not to say that their path was wrong.
No.
Like everybody's got their own path, but you see the people that, their goal was to become the CEO, and then they become the CEO, and then what?
Yeah.
And then they've kind of reached that, because I have, I know a couple of guys that I've known for a long time that went that route. They went the CEO route. And, by the time they were in their late 20s, they already had nice cars, and I didn't go that route.
Yeah.
And then, by the time they were in their 30s, they were making a ton of money, had a home, and now in their 40s, they're like, they've reached like the cap.
Yeah.
Like they're at the cap of where they can go. And now they're like, I don't know what to do. Now it's like, now they're lost, and now they have to like start from scratch on how to create a life for themselves, a life that they can feel fulfilled in.
Who they are.
Exactly.
They need to refine who they are.
Because they set the destination, they reached it, and now what?
Yeah.
That's why the journey, like you said, it's all about the journey, because when you're constantly in the journey, you're constantly changing, constantly learning, growing, shifting, trying new things, seeing if it works.
And nothing's a mistake. It's a lesson.
Yeah.
That we're all, chapters and movements, and it's really like, instead of reborn, no, it's all, like it's all one life, but there's these chapters, and it's actually a new life, because whether it's past relationships, careers, that was something else that you were living at that time. Mm-hmm. So this is a new time, life, thought, everything that comes into now, being present,
Yeah. And
it is a present.
And that it is. I mean, I think that's why they call it the presence.
And
And, I talk about that often with the yoga practice, because every practice is brand new. Every practice is a completely new lifespan that you get to experience. Yeah, it will have a lot of similarities, but if you stay present to what each moment and experience opens up for you, then you can see the nuances, the differences that actually make it that new life that it truly is. Because every time you step onto your mat, it's a new journey. And what you get to experience and move through is going to be brand new. And so that keeps that cycle going.
Of course. And it's just like riding a wave too.
Yeah.
You're never going to get that same wave. But if you stay present in that wave and you realize, wait, that was so different. That felt so good. And all I did was stand there. Or I just got barreled. Or I saw this coming, And
I'm sure it's the same with every time you roll in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I can roll with the same guy, but I know, okay, this is going to be a tough roll, but I'm going to try this, and I need to be present.
There's something to say about these types of, I'll call practices, in general, that require, not require, maybe that's the wrong word, but allow us to be present, because then we can truly experience the gift of every moment, like you said, like it's a present to be present. Because jiu-jitsu, you have to be present. Surfing, you have to be present. Yoga, you don't necessarily have to be present, but it's much better if you are.
I mean, anything, you don't have to be. And then, but if you're not, like, it's anything that you're present for is much better. Even the bad things, if you're present, once that bad goes away, you feel like, wow.
Yeah.
That struggle, whether it's fasting, whatever it is, it's, you have to be here now.
Mm-hmm. No, I talk about that often in class, because people will often get into an uncomfortable position or moment or time in their life and want to just go to their happy place. But that's not how you move through it.
No.
You don't move through the discomfort by checking out and going to that happy place. You only move through it by being present to it, engaging with it, and learning from it and learning how to navigate it. So then when you get to the other side, if you were able to maintain that presence, you hopefully won't have to go through that experience again. It will at least be different. And that's another gift of a challenging asana, is you go into a challenging asana and you're like, holy crap, this sucks. I mean, this is painful. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. I really want to get out, but okay, what am I learning here?
Yeah.
What can I ground into?
Yeah.
What can I, how am I breathing right now? And then once you do that, that's the one true gift, I think. Now, well, there's lots of gifts, but one of the gifts of Ashtanga is that peak pose. You get to move into that really uncomfortable place and see how you're engaging with it, soften it, and navigate through it. So then the next time you get to that same position, it's not as bad.
Yeah.
It's not as bad. And then that creates this like level of perseverance that you can withstand more. And you can take that into anything and all that you do. Everything. Your surfing, your jiu-jitsu, your life, your relationships,
It's crazy.
Work. Yeah.
And I mean, that's with, addictions and stuff like that. You find those moments where it's not finding a comfortable place. You're numbing yourself because you're in an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
So you're trying to avoid by however. And, I've been in dark places and dabbled with things and pushed myself to the extreme, and also people I know, and getting out of it. And that's where I think it's when you disconnect from the spirit of why you're doing everything. And then when you're present, and allow that spirit to come in, you really can then understand how deep you can go, whether it's asana or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is that you're going into. Because even a relationship, you have to go deep inside each other to be able to produce something of a child or something, or anything
of depth. Mm-hmm. You got to go deep. Yeah. No, it is definitely like that. If you can't run from things.
Yeah.
And because I used to drink, and I don't drink anymore. It's been 2.5 years since I drank. I don't knock anybody who does drink.
Yeah.
Like, come on over, it's all good.
I rarely, I had a couple beers in Mexico with the wife. She has drinks. I'm like, no, I don't drink, but I don't really. Yeah. If I want to, I'm going to have one now. I've been when I was with friends. Yeah. Oh, give me a drink to 20 to whatever else there is. And
definitely been there.
And it's like, what am I doing? That's not who, but a lot of that becomes also habit. Because you're just living in a way, and you're not allowing to let go of things. Yeah. Let things be that were maybe one time.
Yeah, so, that's true.
I think that's another thing too.
And it's, if you believe in karma, if you believe that we are given our challenges to learn from them, then when you find your escape, then you're not moving through that karma.
Definitely.
You're not. You're hiding from it. And what happens with that is that you only postpone it to another day. And the sooner you can get through this. So one of the reasons why I teach such a challenging class is because the sooner we get through this stuff, the better it is for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
Because if we just put it off until later, not only is it we still got to go through it, but chances are it's going to be harder.
Yeah.
We're not going to be as grounded or as able to do it. So just get it over with. I definitely used to use drinking to kind of just like zone out. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, it's a rough day. Let me just have a drink. One of the reasons why I stopped drinking, there's a couple, but one of the reasons is, when COVID first hit, I went from having a beer or two to 6 a day.
Crazy. I went way opposite of that.
Oh man,
but I've never been an everyday drinker or anything.
Yeah, see, I was 1 to 2 beer, maybe. Not every day, but most days.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Most days I'll have like a beer or 2. And then COVID hit, and all the studios closed and everything closed, and you're staying home, and I started having 6 or more. And then I'm not done, dude. I am not done.
And I think you told me this before.
Did I tell you? Yeah, and then I brought in the whiskey.
That's what I was going to say. I thought you said whiskey.
I brought in the whiskey. And I hadn't drank whiskey in a long time. And I was like, we got nothing else to do. I brought in the whiskey. So I would have like these 6+ beers during the, throughout the day. Maybe more, God. And then I'd finish the night off with a large glass of whiskey. And so what happened was, at the time, Sequoia was still letting me rock her to sleep at night, it's like, if you have kids, and I've only had 2 daughters, so I can't relate to it with sons, but rocking my daughter to sleep is like heaven to me.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I remember rocking her to sleep, and I started spinning. I had the spins, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, seriously, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? Like, I'm seriously going to be drunk while rocking my daughter to sleep? I'm like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Because I knew that time was fleeting.
Yeah.
I knew that she wasn't going to let me do that forever. And ironically enough, she stopped letting me do that shortly thereafter. I mean, maybe even before I put down the alcohol. But definitely after I had that realization. Yeah. And I stopped drinking the whiskey. Because that's what
there's always that moment of clarity that you find that way, where you go, is this helping or hurting? Yeah. This joy that I have right here.
Because to me in that moment, holding Sequoia, and she wanted me to sing to her, so I'd sing to her. And it was just like, that moment is pure love. Yeah. It's pure love. Like, there's no ulterior motives. Yeah. There's no like games. There's nothing to be gained or lost. It's just a pure, precious moment that I got to share. And there I was, drunk.
Yeah, that's
like... That hit me like a ton of bricks, actually. It really
I used to like think myself like, I'm not like the everyday, Regina doesn't really drink, but I can have fun with my friends. Yeah. I can have a lot of fun. When I have fun, and I'm like someone like, I'll drink so much, like whatever it is, like snacks, and when I go somewhere, I'll be like 5 drinks in, like not realizing, because I'm just thirsty, just drinking. Like I'll drink a 6-pack of non-alcoholic beers now, and I'm like, I think it was just the beer that made me so sick. Because I just drink. I drink a lot of fluids, whether it's tea, whatever. So when we were in Puerto Rico last in December, and we surfed all day, we went to this Mexican food place, and we had a bunch of pitchers. We had like 3 pitchers at dinner. There was like 6 of us then 3 left, and we were waiting for the ride, and me and my 2 other buddies had like 3 more pitchers. And I was like sitting there, I'm like, well, I'm not that, don't feel buzzed. I stood up and just like did the spinning, got back, someone handed me a joint, and I just started puking. And I'm like, yeah, why do I do this? Yeah. Like, and it doesn't matter now too. I realize if I have 2 beers or 10 beers, I'm gonna be hungover or wake up with just that funky taste. And so I don't really like drink, but when I'm with friends, I just get excited, like, oh yeah, and we're talking, and I'll just have one, or like if we were sitting here, I would just be like talking, and you don't realize it, and then
till you stand up,
and then you call or whatever, and then I'd be in a fight with Regina or whatever it is, like, because you're not you. Yeah. And you're like, it makes no sense to be, there's a time and place. I'm not saying never or whatever, but like,
me neither.
You just like, you realize how, and then it becomes habit. Yeah. And then once the habit comes in, then you start dwelling on your whatever issues that might be there to make an excuse for why you're doing it or whatever. And it's just a dark place.
Yeah. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah. And it's a depressant. You get depressed, you stop doing the things you enjoy.
Yeah. And you sleep, and you oversleep, and you wake up hungover. You don't surf that well. You practice Doesn't feel good if you if you do practice. You may not practice. And
that's where the next day I won't.
Yeah, no.
Nothing's going on. Even if I had like a few, I'm like, if I eat too late, I feel that way. So now I was like,
yeah,
I've just become so in tune with myself, or if I eat late, what I eat, drink wrong, too much sugar, whatever. I'm just like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah, same.
I feel too much.
And you know what about the drinking? One of my favorite things about not drinking or smoking anymore is I find I have to apologize to my loved ones a lot less. A lot less.
Yeah.
Like so much less. Even to the point where Sequoia noticed it.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think I hadn't drank in maybe 6 to 8 months. And she was like, Dad, you and Mom are so much nicer. I was like, whoa. Wow. You don't even realize.
You don't realize. I think that's the biggest thing with the relationships. When they're drinking all the time together, it's just like, it's fun until it's not.
Yeah.
And like one wrong look at the waitress or something, there's a fight.
Oh, yeah.
One like saying of something. It's just because you either have that false confidence until it becomes an insecurity, because it's a downer, it's a depressant. Yeah. Then you get angry, then you justify it. It's just that's why it's like, I kind of now I'm like, if it's a boys trip only and I'm in the middle of on a surf trip somewhere, maybe. Yeah. But even then, I've realized for me, I'm more of like a smoke a little burning joint and be in my own world, thinking things like, even I do it almost like a practice where I have an intention, whether I'm hiking, getting a massage. Mm-hmm. I rarely do it when I'm even doing the practice or surfing or in the act of a passion that I have. I do it more afterwards to take in, to really stay focused on that subject of what I'm doing. Yeah. I like psychedelics and this. Yeah. I've always been in that way. And I like, because it to travel in more, but I don't, it's not the needing. And I think that's why I like them, because when you go out and drink, you feel like you need to engage and do all the things with the people. Yeah. Where when, a little bit of some shrooms and cannabis or whatever, I'm more of just me or with the person I'm with,
It's a much different.
And if you do it at the right, because I've taken enough psychedelics at parties and stuff where it's really fun and chaotic. And the next day you have great stories. Yeah. Because no one ever heard a good story start with eating a salad. So there's one time I was eating salad. Yeah. This one time I had like 3 beers and my buddy handed me some shrooms. And I was on the roof naked. Yeah. Yeah. But, so it's like, it's learning with everything, learning how to balance and control anything,
Getting back to your kind of way of doing things, it's learning what fits you.
Yeah.
Because for some people, drinking's okay. For some people, there's any combination under the sun. What works for you?
Yeah.
And that's why some people will get uncomfortable when they find out that I don't drink alcohol, and they feel like they can't drink in front of me, or they can't invite me over, or I don't want to go to a party or something. I'm like, no, please, do you. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, by all means, do what makes you feel good. I did. I joke about it, but I pretty much drank my way through my 20s.
Yes, I had a lot. I had a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of fun.
being a local pro surfer in a town that everyone wanted to be at, and tourists, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Was born and raised there, so I knew all the bartenders and knew everybody, and
plus your sister.
Plus my sister.
Wendy. When I met Wendy, she was a bartender. So I can only imagine.
And all of her older friends that I knew because I hung out with them and all the whole, it was fun. Yeah. But I've always said that about just, you got to go through everything. There's times everyone needs to experience whatever that is that, their highs and their lows, and it has to be balanced out. And if you're living an extreme lifestyle, you need the extremes of every end. And that's where I feel like in my sense, I like to go extremes of deep by myself, and I like the extremes of where I've been, you know, I mean, I've worked Coachella and stuff, like done like crazy odd jobs, like out there for a month. All I was doing was building sets, running stages, partying.
Yeah.
But it was an experience.
Yeah.
And then, you know, going to all these different places, and you got to go through it.
I think you and I are very similar in that way, because I too have done lots of fun and wild things just for the experience. I've gone on a music tour. I was on tour for 6 weeks. I was like pretty much the right-hand man for the tour manager of an artist who was opening for Nelly Furtado. And we just toured the whole United States for 6 weeks on a bus. And I just did it because I wanted to.
I was doing that. I was working concerts for like a year because I wanted to.
Yeah. And I did like, you know, I did some movies. Went to Portugal twice for a month each time. And, you know, I lived in Brazil for a year. And I've traveled the world, and just to have the experience, because that's truly what life is all about. Experience.
It is. That's where now I've met with, like, when I met Regina, it's like she's from the other side of the world. She's from Uzbekistan. And, you know, she has family in Russia, but so I've got to go to Russia, I got to go to Uzbekistan, and she's like, I just want to go, like, let's just go to, we went to Merida last week to go to Mexico because she just wanted to go to this colonial town and shoot photos and see the town. Okay, let's go to Morocco. Let's go to Cuba. Let's go to, like, we just, like, she's ready to go.
Yeah.
And it's funny when you find that too, you realize even less I need.
Yeah.
I'm letting go of so much more. And she's one who will have like one drink at a place and it's just done.
Yeah.
Nope, I don't want to get buzzed because she has the worst hangovers ever. But she's just like, nope. So I'm like, well, I don't need to. I only was like drinking because everyone else kind of when in Rome, that's kind of like, and now I'm like, I don't really care. I don't really I can be around anyone doing whatever I want. And with her, it's like a cheaper and much more like efficient trip because we're waking up at 5. Mm-hmm. I'm making us coffee, doing my practice. Then we're walking around. I usually make food. We find things. And it's like so much more of exploring the places than like going on a vacation.
For sure. We just did that. We just went to Japan.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even talk to you about that.
Yeah, no, we went to Japan. That could be another story. Oh, yeah, that could be a whole other conversation. No, we just did that too, and we did the same thing. Like, we got up every morning. We practiced Ashtanga. We found an Ashtanga studio that we walked to, and we would walk to the Ashtanga studio, practice Mysore, then walk back, eat breakfast, and then go explore Kyoto.
Wow.
And it was amazing. Like that. I mean, you two are very similar to Megan and I, and which doesn't surprise me because we get along so well. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's all about like that exploration. That's big for me. It's like going on adventures and exploring, because that's life. You get to really experience, visualize, smell, and taste, and be a part of life.
People don't realize that, like, how much being like, oh, we have Mexican food here. We have when you go onto that soil of a place, it's crazy the difference of feeling. And when you engage into the town, like really engage, like I don't think people understand when with engaging who don't travel. You know, there's many people who travel, but the people who don't, they've never, like my dad's never. So like when he tries to tell me certain things, I'm like, Dad, I've been there.
Yeah.
You know? Don't tell me this. I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah. Don't tell me how you think Mexico is. Yeah. Because I know how it is.
You went there 30 years ago. It's different. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard that only 10%, maybe it's a little bit more, but only 10% of Americans have passports.
Yeah. I heard, I read another study too, and it says the two things I was like on like success. I know they did a study on like successful men, and then but then they did the overall too. And the two question or things that they said before like passing in the last month is I wish I traveled more and spent more time with my children.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like 80% of them.
Yeah. I know. It's regrets.
Yeah.
What do you regret? And it's usually travel more and spend more time with my kids, which is exactly why I read that too. And I kind of learned that young in life.
Same.
Which is why I always traveled my ass off and loved as hard as I could.
Yeah.
You know, like I love my kids. Sequoia, I spend every morning with her. Like, you know, when she's here, because, you know, I co-parent, and so she's here half the week. And in the mornings that she's here, I don't go surf.
Oh.
I wake up early and I get some work done. And I like to wake up at 5 and meditate when it's still dark. And I like have the house to myself for like 2 hours, and I love that time. But I love to wake Sequoia up, or she wakes up, she calls for me. We have a full morning together.
That's great.
I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Like we practice together. She does pranayama and meditation in the mornings, first thing in the morning and the last thing before she goes to bed. She does pranayama meditation. Then we do an asana practice. She's moving through, she's handpicked a bunch of different asana and primary series, but she's got a decent practice. Good. That's epic. And then I make her breakfast and we hang out while she eats breakfast. I make her lunch for school. Then I take her to school and I pick her up from school and I take her to the activities. Yeah. And for her nightly routine, she takes a bath. I'll hang out with her while she takes a bath. You know, this is after dinner.
Yeah.
Dinner, bath, and then after bath, I brush her. You know, we brush our teeth together. We brush our hair together. We get our jammies on. Then we do stretches because her cerebral palsy makes her legs really tight. Oh. So she does stretches at night. So I do them with her. I do some stretches with her, just like calf stretches because that's where it really affects her. And then after that, I massage her legs and her shoulders every night. I massage her.
That's good.
Because her cerebral palsy, especially in her body, it's made her core really weak, but her muscles really tight.
Crazy, yeah.
So I massage her legs.
That's so awesome. I was thinking, that's what Regina and I mean, we talk about having kids and stuff. And I was saying that same like thing. I'm like, when we get it, I'm gonna massage the baby.
Oh yeah.
And like, keep everything flowing.
I massage her every night.
The arms, you know.
It's so good, dude. Like, I love it. I love that time. And you know, at first, you know, she's like, oh, you know, why do you do this? Oh, it's a little uncomfortable. And I'm like, and now she loves it. And now I'm like, you know, I massage her legs and her feet and her shoulders, her traps, because I've learned from her that kids, we get tight traps when we're really young.
Really young.
So I've been massaging those. And then we do pranayama and meditation again before we go to bed. And then I play her some lullabies and I cuddle up with her and we go to sleep. And I love that time with her. I absolutely love it. So yeah, no, like spending time with her is hands down like the most magical thing I can do. Bet. You know, I talked about this the other day, and with the true gift of having kids is it's the first, at least for me, it was the first relationship that I had ever had in my life that I had unconditional love.
Yeah.
And what I learned was that the gift of unconditional love isn't the receiving of it. And it's not having somebody unconditionally love you. It's giving your love to somebody else. That's so good, dude. Like it's magical. So yeah, I spend as much time with her as I can, and I will definitely continue to do that for as long as she will let me, because of those regrets that you told me. Like those people would say, I regret spending time with my kids and for traveling, because I've seen dads and I've actually come across dads. So my mechanic that I've gone to for like 25 years, I know him really well. He's the man. Like he's a great mechanic.
That's good.
But I remember I took my daughter in there once because I had to go drop off the truck, and then we, left, and I took my daughter, and he got to meet her, and he was like, he pulled me aside, and he was like, whatever you do, make sure you spend as much time with her as possible. He goes, I opened this mechanic shop, I ran this business, and I made it what it is, but what was sacrificed is I didn't spend a lot of time with my kids. And that's hands down the biggest regret a lot of people make, especially on their deathbed, because what I've also heard is that your time that you give your children after they're born is an investment. The time you give them after they're born will be returned to you on your deathbed. If you were never around, chances are neither will they be.
It's crazy because I mean, like, my parents are getting older, but they're still healthy in that. But my mom's had a couple scares, and it's just that being able to be there and knowing that they grew me and did so much for me, and like they almost turn into that same thing in reverse, where now you're taking care of them, not necessarily, but in a way, like they're like teenagers in a way. They can do something that might, cause a problem or something, that might happen, an accident because of, neglecting something that they needed to take care of or pay attention to. Yeah. And it's slow, and it starts getting more and more, and just having that time is the same as when, a child doesn't have the parents around. They're not going to be there later. Yeah. So having that time as a child to be with your parents as well, and respect them for what they did, because they don't know, no one knows how to be that way. And that's what's super crazy is you just see the parents who want to work so much to give so much, but that's not really what it is. Yeah. No, I
had a student of mine send me something that because he was going through something with his mom. His mom I think she had like a slight case of dementia and was stuck on this loop, and she kept repeating like the same thing. She would repeat the same things over and over and over again. And he sent me something that basically said, when your parents start to do that, because it's very common, when they start to get really old and they start to run these patterns, it was basically like when you were a kid, you constantly said the same thing. Your parents had the patience to allow you to say the same thing over and over and over again. So now it's your turn to have the patience for them when they start to revert back to that being like a child.
And and I think the hardest thing I'm noticing is because you're used to your parents being the one that knows more, can do anything you could run to, you'd go to. So when you start to see that little bit change, you like kind of get irritated, like, what are you doing or something, because you don't expect them to do that because you've never seen them do that stuff. Yeah. So you look at it, so it's like, you have to remember, and that's good if you do pause and remember they did this with you, and they're going through a transition in their lives. Yeah, and it's all part of life and living. We all have it's pretty wild.
We're all gonna go through it. Every single one of us.
We're all gonna go through it.
Well, dude, I think we can talk forever.
We could talk forever.
Yeah. So. Thank you so much for coming over and hanging out and having this conversation with me. I value you, and obviously,
likewise, right back at you.
Thank you for the surfboard. I can't wait to try it out. I can't wait for the waves big enough for me to do that, and we should surf together.
Let's do it.
Now that you're in town for a while until you guys go to Puerto Rico, let's get a surfing
for sure.
I would love to surf with you, dude.
Yeah, definitely.
But thank you again. And thank you for everything, your friendship and your lessons. I learned a lot from this conversation.
I'm right back at you.
Right on, brother.
Sure, brother.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Good stuff.